Hello! It's that time of year again. About halfway through 2017, we did a review of the year episode, part 1 of the year. I would recommend going and listening to that as a precursor to this one, which is part 2, where we look at all the films that we've been doing episodes tying into for the last 6 months or so. Basically, it's a whole load of us just discussing the latest releases, which is good fun, including stuff like Star Wars and Justice League. We do try to keep spoilers to an absolute minimum, particularly as in many cases we haven't all seen the film being discussed. Off the top of my head, the only significant spoilers in our discussions are for Star Wars The Last Jedi, but be warned, we do discuss The Mummy, Transformers The Last Night, Despicable Me 3, Spider-Man Homecoming, War for the Planet of the Apes, Death Note, It, the Lego Ninjago movie, Kingsman The Golden Circle, Blade Runner 2049, Cult of Chucky, Jigsaw, Thor Ragnarok, Justice League, The Disaster Artist, Star Wars The Last Jedi, and Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle. Enjoy.
Take it away, Soul.
It's quite morose.
Yeah, no, I felt like I should be doing like some kind of Scottish, like, it was 3 years since my Muriel died, and all I had was me little dog. Oh, that's Irish. I keep doing I can't do a Scottish accent.
What's that, lads? Are you trying to do a Scottish accent there?
Are you trying to do a Scottish accent?
Is that Scottish
Bond.
Irish Bond
James
just
Bond.
walked in?
It's Hogmanay Bond.
Ooh,
Lads, it's 2018. What are you up to?
There is a film starring Sean Connery before he became James Bond, where he plays an Irishman, and there's like leprechauns in it. It was a Disney film. I really think we should look at it sometime.
he played an Irishman in The Untouchables, didn't he?
He won an Oscar for it, yeah. So, Anyway, welcome
Right,
to Diminishing...
Hang on.
Okay.
We're going to do it.
Oh.
It's
Welcome. Welcome to Diminishing Returns, and our either last or first episode of 2018-2017, depending on when you're listening to this. So this is our third in our traditional biannual review of the year episodes, where we look back at a lot of the films that we were building up to in our previous episodes and series, and talk sort of briefly, generally, about what we thought about each of them.
And we should just explain that someone's made that classic mistake of giving Sol a noisy toy for Christmas, and so now he's gonna, for some reason, he's going to be making noises.
Oh no, the thing got stuck. It started playing 2 notes at once. I was trying to do keyboard.
You know, I also had a harmonica when I was about 10 years old, and it was on a chain, and I wore it around my neck for about 2 weeks, thinking that I could like whip it out and impress people, but it never really works out that way.
Did you realise that you couldn't play it?
Yeah.
I can't play mine either, but it's impressing everyone who's listening.
Oh, yay!
Sol, what noise can you give us whenever we get a really hot punchline?
The most ear-piercing, awful noise.
So here we are in our third review of the year episode. Should we just jump right in? Last time we left off with, was it Wonder Woman?
The last one we did was Wonder Woman, but only Solid seen it. But then we have obviously done a whole episode on it since then, so we don't really need to discuss it.
No.
But we also covered The Mummy last time, and only Alan had seen it.
Oh, did we?
Yeah, Alan had seen it, I think.
Oh.
But I believe you have now seen it, Calvin, as well. So you might want to jump in with your thoughts on that before we get into the proper bulk of this episode.
Well, Alan, what were your thoughts on the original Mummy? I can't remember you ever seeing it. You must have seen it on, like, premiere day or something to have thoughts on it by that record.
Well, no, basically I thought it was... it kind of went really by the numbers. It was playing safe. Didn't really do anything very special or interesting, but basically got the job done. 6 out of 10.
So I saw The Mummy not too long ago on Amazon Prime, and I think by the numbers is a pretty good assessment of it. Immediately after I saw it, I put on Twitter that it felt like I was watching someone's very expensive midlife crisis, because it's all about Tom Cruise having these fights and trying to be like a, Chris Pratt wisecracking character, and he's got all these mates who are like 35, and he's hanging out with this wisecracking guy, and this woman's after him, oh, isn't it nice, and everyone else is old, and oh my, I had to rewind it at one bit when he's having a fight with Russell Crowe at one point, and Russell Crowe has a line that is something like, "You might be a younger man, but you've still got something to learn." And I was like, wait a minute. And I looked up, and Tom Cruise is 2 years older than Russell Crowe. And yet Russell Crowe was supposed to be this, like, fatherly figure, as far as the film went.
Did you like it when Russell Crowe turns into Ray Winston?
Oh, I loved that. Russell Crowe is my favourite thing about the film.
Oh, definitely. You could tell he was just having a lot of fun, couldn't you?
Oh, yeah. And that's what it needed, because maybe the film would have been good if they'd have cast a lesser-known actor, but it felt like it was trying to be the start of this ambitious cinematic universe.
Which is already falling apart, I believe. All but officially announced, yeah.
And because I think that this film was railroaded by Tom Cruise and his people, who apparently came in and changed the scripts, and I think he's got a producing credit on it or something, because they turned it into a Tom Cruise vehicle. And it can't be that. Like, if you have all these plans for this giant universe and everything, obviously he isn't going to be in every single one of them. So we're not relying on Tom Cruise's star power to bring in audiences for other installments. Why build this one around him? It felt like a massive vanity project, and yeah, it seems to have put the nail in the coffin of the Dark Universe. There are tales of on the Universal lot. They had this huge, office building dedicated to the Dark Universe, and they were hiring all this staff and all that kind of stuff. And now apparently there's like 2 people in there who go in to like switch on the lights, and that's about it, really. Because it doesn't look like they're going to be moving forward with it.
Well, Bride of Frankenstein was moving forward and was actively halted, which is very damning. And they haven't said it's cancelled; they're just reworking it. But I don't know. I can't quite see it happening.
Yeah.
What do you give The Mummy out of 10?
5?
6.
So it's a diminishing returns 5.5 out of 10. That's the jingle for 5 out of 10 or 6 out of 10 or in between.
So should we move on to the next film, which is...
So this year, basically, everything that's come out this year, we did Split at the start of the year. I don't suppose you've seen that, have you, Calvin, yet?
No.
Okay, well that had 6.5 between Alan and I. Resident Evil: The Final Chapter.
Oh, I've seen it.
Oh yeah? What would you give that quickly, I guess? Let's not dwell on these ones too much, I guess, but...
I could really I could really skew the results here, couldn't I? Because there's only going to be one score for this film.
It's currently got 1 out of 10 from Alan, so yeah.
Oh.
You can give it.
5.
You liar. You have no integrity.
All right, so
I was going to give it 10 then. But,
it's got a 3 out of 10 between us. Rings. Have you seen that one, Calvin?
Nope.
Alan saw it last time, gave it 5 out of 10. I saw it and I give it a 4 out of 10. It was pretty shite. So that now has a 4.5 going forward into this extra second half of the year stuff that we're about to be talking about. 50 Shades Darker, I doubt either of us have seen that. No?
Nope.
Alan gave it a 4. Logan we all saw, and we all gave
very good.
an 8. So it had an 8. Kong Skull Island.
Oh, no, I haven't gone to that yet.
That has a 7 from last time. Beauty and the Beast had a 6 from a lot of us. And Power Rangers has a 6, because I have not seen it. Don't suppose you've seen Ghost in the Shell, Kevin?
No.
No. That has a 5. Fate of the Furious.
Nope.
That has a 5. This is just Alan basically deciding these. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, Calvin.
Nope.
Got 6.5. Alien Covenant we did. That's an 8, which is quite controversial because everyone hates that film apparently. Pirates of the Caribbean has a 5. Oh, and Wonder Woman. Remind me what you gave Wonder Woman in our Wonder Woman episode, Calvin?
I think it might have been 7. I think it was probably 7.
So Wonder Woman has 7.4. Okay. So The Mummy isn't even a holdover from last time. I've just got it wrong. The Mummy was our official start of the second half of the year. Fuck this write-up. All right, so after The Mummy, we did Transformers, tying into Transformers: The Last Night. Did you go and see that, you guys?
Yeah.
I haven't.
Oh.
Because I'm at a point now where I think I shouldn't be giving them any more money to make these things. It was, every time I've gone into one, it's been, I think I mentioned this in our previous review, it's, because I'm the fan of that series, if there's a fan out of the three of us, but you just always hope that they're going to get better and that they're going to learn, and they're just always the same, and this was just meant to be more of the same, so I thought they didn't deserve to have my money.
But you gave Age of Extinction a 7 out of 10, Calvin.
Yeah, but that was 6 of those points were because of Kelsey Grammer, and this one didn't have him.
Okay.
Transformers 5, is it?
The Last Night?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, pretty terrible. It was totally messy. The structure was nonsense. None of the characters make sense. Anthony Hopkins was probably the best thing in it. He was just having a laugh. He was obviously taking the piss. Yeah, really messy, and what you expect from Transformers in terms of the action, and just didn't make any sense in terms of plot. So it's pretty much summed it up. You know, Stanley Tucci plays Merlin in this film.
Yeah, what's that about?
Well, exactly. I've seen it, and I don't know what it's about. Michael Bay definitely doesn't know what it's about. First of all, I gave that film 3 out of 10.
Okay.
And if I'm the only one who's seen it, then that's an official rating, isn't it? By the way, I've put together some quiz questions that I'm going to drop in throughout the show because they're kind of tangentially connected to the films we're talking about. So I've got one for Transformers. I've got some Transformers names here.
Yay.
Some of which are real, some of which I've made up. And so you have to decide.
Calvin knows them all.
What's what? Fair. Well, I don't know. I kind of went. There's a lot of Transformers. I went on a Wikipedia list of Transformers names, and there's so many different iterations and worlds and all sorts of stuff.
Okay.
So I tried to avoid the obvious ones. Just shout out, I guess.
Transformers or Schmanformers?
Okay, so you're gonna do a jingle.
Do the Transformers theme.
Okay, so I'm going to give you a name. Is it a real thing from Transformers or not? Ambulon. Ambulon.
I think that is Schmanformers.
Okay.
I think that's real.
That's real. Ambulon is real. It's this is all the information I've got. It said it was a leg.
A leg?
And it was from... And it came from the IDW Publishing Original Characters, whatever that means.
Okay.
What about Vroom? Vroom.
I'm going to go Schmanformers.
Okay.
I think it's real again.
Yes, Vroom was a motorcycle / rocket car from Mega Pretenders, if that means anything to you.
Was that a Transformers spin-off, or was that an unofficial
I don't know.
knockoff?
This was all official Transformers Wikipedia page stuff, so they're all official in some sense. Tremors.
Schmansformers.
I'm going to go Transformers.
Okay, Tremors was made up by me.
Oh.
Sorry. Cybax.
Yeah, I think that's real.
Schmanformers.
Cybax. I could spell it for you if that helps.
I think it's real.
Cybax.
How's it spelled?
Is real.
Is it P-S-Y?
CYBAXX. It was a space shuttle. It's a Technobot. And it says here, the Technobots were created by Grimlock from part of Unicron's brain.
Oh. So that's where they came from.
Honk.
Oh, God. I think that's real again.
Okay.
I think not real.
Good tactics, Calvin. That was not real.
Ah,
Yeah.
finally lost the point.
Chain Claw.
I'm going to go Schmanformers.
Yeah, I'm going to go Schmanformers on that one.
Chain Claw is real. He was a bear. He was a pretender beast. Erector. Erector.
Oh, that's got to be Schmanformers.
I think it's real.
Erector is a crane from Micromaster Transports.
God.
Okay. Spunk.
Oh,
Spunk.
Transformers.
Schmanformers. It's got to be Schmanformers.
Spunk S''PUNK. I made that one up, I'm afraid.
Oh, damn it! How am I doing so bad at this?
Hole Punch.
That's real.
Schmanformers.
Hole Punch is real. He was part of something called Scoop, who was a front-end loader. They combined together to make things, something like that.
Isn't that Thomas the Tank Engine?
Yeah. Alan.
Schmanformers.
I think it's real.
Alan is real.
Oh,
Alan was a TGV high-speed train in a micro-transformer thing.
how are you spelling Alan?
ALAN.
Oh. It's not very inventive for a Transformers name.
Well, guys, I gave you 10 there. One of them, neither of you got right. Calvin, you got one right. Sol got 8.
Yeah!
So that's a big lead to Sol to take into the next round.
What? Oh no!
We'll see how it goes.
That's my victory theme.
It was a 50-50 game, really. I expected it to be closer than that.
Yeah.
I thought Calvin would edge me out with his actual Transformers knowledge, but I guess it's like how Beethoven was brilliant at playing music because he was deaf. It's
So next, what did we do? We looked at the Despicable Me films and Minions.
yes, we did. Yes,
So who saw Despicable Me 3?
I did actually.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
And what did you think?
I was going to say classic case of diminishing returns, but to be honest, I think I prefer it to the second one.
Oh.
I thought it was shit. It was, definitely diminishing returns. Tried to do too much with one film, like trying to pack too many plots in there. The new character they brought in of the twin brother didn't have enough character to make it funny. There was nothing going on there. It was...
Trey Parker was very odd in it. Just having him voice a character as an actor, I still don't really understand.
But it was just Randy Marsh as the
it really was.
Randy Marsh.
Oh, really?
It really was. Yeah.
Huh.
He just kind of talks like this. It's weird. And then there's a few points where you see his character as a child, and the voice is sped up, and it just sounds like Stan, basically. So, yeah. It's I liked his character though. I enjoyed the villain and some of the sort of elements in there. I don't think it really went as far with it as it might. Nice animation and stuff. Like I say, I thought it was fine. It just wasn't good. Like the first one was surprisingly good. So the best bit by a mile was the subplot with the minions. Once again, I feel dirty for enjoying them as much as I did, but they were like completely removed from the bulk of the film. They were just doing a prison break on their own
for most of the film.
Yeah.
So you just got this kind of Great Escape style minions shoveling dirt out in their trousers kind of sequence, and it was just really, that stuff was great, but the rest of it, not so much. It was alright. Alan, what do you give it out of 10?
4.
I give it a 6. I thought it was passable. So that's a diminishing return score of 5 overall. There.
Wow, that is a fall from grace, considering how positive we all mainly were about the other films.
Yeah.
I have a Despicable Me question for you as well. This film, Despicable Me 3, made the Despicable Me franchise the highest grossing animated franchise ever. What I want to ask you, I'll let Calvin go first, we'll do it in turns.
Oh, bless you.
The other 4 franchises that are in the top 5, highest grossing
Avatar.
animated franchises.
Oh, highest grossing. So do you want me to name all 5?
No, we'll go one at a time, we'll alternate. And then,
Okay. Well, Ice Age must be one of them.
That's a
yes,
good
Ice
shout.
Age. Ice Age is number 3. You get a point for that.
Right.
I think, although it's not much of a franchise, only one film deep so far, I think Frozen might be on there.
Yeah, I was gonna, think.
Frozen, I'm afraid not.
Oh, no.
sorry.
Oh!
Oh, grossing, actually, rather than making money. Shit, I was just thinking of how much money it's brought in as a franchise rather than grossing.
Yeah,
Okay.
this is just like the box office.
Yeah.
Not your merchandise. Oh, it's
shit.
Calvin's turn.
Right, okay.
Okay, franchise. Well, this is tough because a lot of animated franchises go like directly to video and stuff. So like, I would be hesitant to say, even though I think The Lion King is like the 3rd or 2nd highest grossing animated film of all time, I don't think it'll have...
When you say highest grossing franchise, Alan, do you mean all the films box office combined or like averaged out
Yes.
between...
Box office combined, yeah.
Okay, so it is going to be something with a lot of films then.
Toy Story.
Toy Story is number 5.
Oh my god, wow.
Yes, Toy Story. The one that I got excited about is Cars. Is Cars on there?
Cars is
can't
not.
be.
That's another one.
I
where
only
it's
made
like
a note of the top
merchandising
5, but Cars was like number 7 or number 8 or something like that. It was quite high.
Ooh.
Cars makes all its money
Okay.
on toys.
Yeah.
I think it's like Pixar's most profitable franchise or something absurd, but not based on the
Yeah.
tickets.
So there's 2 more to get. There's number 2 and number 4.
That's right.
It's not going to be Lego. Sorry that I'm taking so long with this, but I really
That's
want
alright.
to win.
I'm glad you're buying me some time to think because I can't think of anything. Ooh, I know. Oh, yes, I know. I've got it.
Oh no! Ooh, Shrek.
Fuck you, cunt!
Shrek is the number 2.
That's
So,
the
answer.
one.
Well done.
Oh, you twat!
There is one more, Sol, if you can get it.
Oh, God.
You've had Shrek, Ice Age, and Toy Story.
I feel like I'm forgetting an obvious DreamWorks series. Kung Fu Panda.
Kung Fu. It's not Kung Fu Panda, but that was. I
Oh.
remember it on the list. It was in the maybe top 10.
Mm.
I haven't actually got the full list in front of me, but I have to rush you.
Monsters Inc.
Monster Inc. No, that was on the list as well, at number 12 or something, but that wasn't in the top 5, I'm afraid.
Is it Happy Feet?
No, it wasn't Happy Feet. That was on there somewhere. It was on it. Okay, let me give you. This is a franchise that's got 3, maybe 4 films. I'm not even sure. They've done quite a lot of them now.
Oh, Madagascar.
Fuck!
It's Madagascar. Madagascar. Woo! Madagascar. Yes,
I couldn't get How to Train Your Dragon out of my head.
that was on there. That was on the list as well. That was like number 7 or something. It was quite high up. Okay, Guy. Well, Calvin, you actually got all 4 of them in the end.
Yeah,
of it,
you catching up.
You caught up some points there.
Oh, phew.
Okay, so next film is Spider-Man: Homecoming.
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man, Spider-Man.
That was just the Diminishing Returns theme, wasn't
That's all he can play.
it? So I think Spider-Man: Homecoming we all saw.
Yeah.
Oh, this is exciting. Well, I think we're going to probably get to a full, proper podcast about this one at some point down the line.
Yeah, I doubt it'll take too long.
Yeah, because now that Spider-Man is fully integrated into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I'll start then and say that I really liked it, and probably my favourite Spider-Man film of the lot.
I'm very surprised with you, Calvin.
Oh.
I just, you don't really like Marvel all that much. You don't like Spider-Man particularly, and I just thought you were going to see it as yet another one of these films. I mean, yeah, I loved it. I thought it was excellent. Honestly, like, spoiler alert for upcoming films, but I do think Marvel's really coming into its own now. There's a lot of people who say they're reaching the peak of it all falling apart and getting fatigued with it. But I think when you look at the most recent few films they've done, they stand as some of their strongest on this slate, personally. But yeah, I loved it, and I'm a big fan of the Spider-Man franchise, so that's interesting. Someone who liked the Sam Raimi films absolutely loads, and someone who didn't care for them, and we both liked Homecoming. I'm sure Alan will now give us a dissenting opinion.
Yeah, I didn't like it.
Oh!
I mean, not that it was particularly bad, but it was just like, because we did our review of Spider-Man, I watched all the Spider-Man films, and this was just exactly the same as the others, as far as I could tell. It's just the same teenage bullshit.
Wasn't
nonsense.
At all. I thought it was very distinctly different. I thought, so number one, it wasn't, it felt like an actual high school kid rather than like a 30-year-old playing dress up.
They did make it, they'd made him younger, didn't they? That was kind of the big thing they'd done.
But also it actually, the fact that he's in high school was actually like a big part of the plot as well. It was more than just a kind of tangential, I've got to get this essay in kind of moment. It was like a big part.
It's like they go on a proper field trip and it's all about this homecoming dance and asking a girl out and all that kind of stuff.
I thought that the villain wasn't just a Frankenstein's monster, a scientist trying to do well that's gone wrong. I thought the villain was very interesting, actually, in this film. You've got it's a very rare instance of like a blue collar criminal, as they call him, isn't it? It's Michael Keaton in a really quite nuanced role for this kind of film. I mean, the end tag at the end of the film, a lot of people were really upset and disappointed with that, because for anyone who hasn't seen it, basically like the mid-credits scene, which is normally when they set up future sequels, has someone with some scorpion tattoos or something, who I think they're setting up as a future villain, in prison with Michael Keaton's Vulture character, and he says like, I heard you know who Spider-Man is, tell me or I'll shiv you. And he's like, nah, you're not having him because I'm going to kill him or something. But you can tell on his face that he's like protecting him, because he does appreciate that he's like a little kid and stuff. And I think a lot of people misread it to just be setting him up as a villain who was going to go and get revenge. But the way I read it was that he's actually getting a little bit of redemption almost, because he's not a completely evil guy. You understand his motives. And I've looked into it, and that is Kevin Feige, or whatever he was called, was saying, we wanted to have a kind of, all our end tags are normally outward looking, and we wanted to have a more introspective one for a change. And I think that confused people, and it did confuse people, but
that's interesting.
That kind of sets the tone for how they handled that character. And I thought he was a really interesting, well fleshed out.
Well, I think I did like that. I liked the ambiguity there, and I did took that from the ending as well. And because obviously there's a personal link to his daughter and all that, and we definitely really tries hard to set this character up as, look, he's doing bad things, but he's doing it for the right reasons. He's just trying to look after his family, like, you know.
Yeah.
But it felt a bit, I don't know. It wasn't that great for me as far as subtlety was concerned, but. At least he's not just a mad villain who's been hit by gamma rays or whatever. Yeah. I suppose that's something.
Another point I'd like to address, and again, one that people often dislike, but is also the appeal for these films, is how it is part of this greater universe and tied into all the other films. And I thought they did a really great job in this film of organically making it part of the world of the other films without it ever feeling too obtrusive. Obviously, Iron Man, played by Robert Downey Jr., has a role in the film, but I never felt like it felt like an organic continuation of what was started in Captain America Civil War. It never felt gratuitous. It always felt like a relatively organic way of allowing Spider-Man to happen. And I loved that it gave Spider-Man all these high-tech gadgets and stuff on his suit in a believable capacity, because it's always been very annoying, the idea that this little high school kid was so amazing he could make all this crazy stuff without anyone knowing. The idea that Tony Stark's making it all for him kind of just makes it work a lot more. But beyond that, the fact that this film opens on the workers cleaning up the debris of the wreckage of the alien ships and stuff from the Avengers, and addresses that, and it lets them get all this technology and power to fuck around with. I really like, again, that feels like a really organic way of acknowledging that this stuff has happened without it feeling like crowbarred in, or it didn't feel like it was there as a nod and a wink to fans. It felt like it was the most organic, easiest way of telling this story and letting these characters get access to materials and stuff, and therefore you were able to get working class characters as villains instead of the usual well-educated mad scientist who, tends to fall into the middle to upper class bracket. So I really enjoyed it.
On a similar note, if I could just add to that, because I was quite annoyed when it became apparent that Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark was going to be a big part of the film, and that it was going to be so integrated into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because it just annoys me, and I've talked about this in other Marvel episodes, where you can't just jump in on any one film anymore without having prior understanding of all the other ones, or at least so I thought, because when I saw this film, I saw it with my boyfriend at the time, who likes Spider-Man, but I don't know if, not a huge movie fan, doesn't really care about who's directing it or anything like that. I don't know if he could tell you what happened in which Sam Raimi Spider-Man film, but a fan nonetheless. Hasn't seen many of the other Avengers films, but has seen bits here and there. And he really loved it. And
had he seen Captain America Civil War?
No.
Because that's the one that sets it up, I guess, that would make the most sense. You need to see.
Yeah, that's the one I haven't seen, so the beginning made no sense to me, but it's just like, all right, magic child.
Did it make no sense to you? Because I think they did a pretty good job of explaining what was happening.
No, it was like, oh look, here's a teenage kid, oh, he's got magical powers, and he knows Iron Man. That was like, there's no introduction to the character other than that.
He's doing a video diary that kind of explains it all.
But yeah, and then he jumps across the room like in one big thing, and it's like, oh, right,
he's Spider-Man.
He's got magic powers.
Well, yeah, but
but I don't know who Spider-Man is. What's that?
Civil War doesn't like that. His introduction in Captain America Civil War is as a kid with magic powers. These films are like aware that you've seen and are familiar with the mythos of Spider-Man, and if you're not, who cares? Not everything needs an origin story so implicitly spelt out. No.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I've seen Spider-Man, so I knew who he was, so it made sense to me.
And that's my point. I think that people can just sort of come to these at whatever stage, and as long as you're not as pedantic as I am, and if you are pedantic like I am, you probably do go and watch them all. But I think that's probably one of the main reasons why these films are such a huge success, because they are just accessible to anyone who just wants to slip in and out.
Yeah.
Bafflingly to my mind, but maybe I'm just too much of a completist. It's just that the worst parts of Homecoming for me were the bits where they couldn't help, they couldn't go more than 5 minutes without making some sort of snarky reference to Thor or Captain America, the Hulk, something like that. And even when bank robbers are breaking into a bank, they have Avengers masks on, and it's like, I get it, you're in the universe, just like, you could have just done a couple of those gags, get them out of the way, and then move on, but no, it literally every 5 minutes.
I like some of that, I don't need all of it. I like the bank robbers having the masks on, but I didn't need...
I hate it.
But I didn't need Spider-Man to then draw attention to it, if you know what I mean. If they, that's the level I'm operating at. I'd like it if they were just robbing a bank with those masks, and it's like how people wear, like, Richard Nixon masks and stuff in the real world. Similarly, there's in the background of some, I think that street even, certainly in the background of the film, you can see there's an Asgardian church that implies that, like, a religion has started around Thor, and that kind of subtle little reference I'm all for. I think it's nice world building, but I agree. I don't like it when they name drop the characters, and I especially don't like the way that a lot of the films seem afraid to directly name drop them. I can't remember if they did this in Spider-Man or not, but Marvel, certainly the TV series, do it a lot, and the films have done it a bit, where they'll say like, "Oh yeah, like the big green guy, huh?" Because they don't want to say Incredible Hulk or whatever, and it's just like,
yeah. But I could get over those bits quite easily, and I did really enjoy the film. I thought it was very, very good. Lots of fun.
I thought it had a great sense of humour.
Yes.
I thought it had real emotion that worked on the level it was meant to for this kind of blockbuster.
I think I didn't particularly like Peter Parker.
Really?
I had the same problem when Andrew Garfield was doing it. He's just a gobshite. He's too cocky. He's too confident for who he's supposed to be.
I don't think
I want my Peter Parker to be a bit nerdy and a bit of a loser.
I thought Tom Holland perfectly balanced what Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield brought. Yeah.
I did like. I liked the fat kid. I liked the sidekick. I thought he was enough character and enough there to make it work without being distracting. Spot on.
I like the cast in general.
Very good cast.
I thought it was refreshingly like diverse cast as well, which like I don't know. It's bad that it's noticeable when they just kind of accurately reflect the sorts of people that you'd get in a high school in the city like that. But
really, because I thought like this is the United Colours of Benetton school, and I thought there might be something I was missing, like in the backstory of this high school, of why there is such a massive range of ethnic diversities in one school.
Just because it's a huge city, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it New York? It's New York, isn't it?
I know you grew up in like Brighouse or wherever, Alan. No, that's Calvin. But
Alan's
Barnsley. So I'm sure there was like 99% white people in your high school, but
certainly was.
But I've been to different schools. When I went to primary school in Reading, it was full of people of different creeds and colours. Then I moved up north, and it was all white people.
Is there though?
Forcing me to sing about Jesus and shit, which really offended me. But yeah.
Well, I'm honest. I'm not convinced. I don't think this is a realistic interpretation of a high school.
I think it is.
I think it's very realistic. Yeah, it's a lot of
especially in America.
Well, no, I think even more so in an American city. I invite you to look up like some census statistics after the recording and post them on Diminishing Returns.
Ratings?
5.
Ooh,
what a grumpy goose, Alan.
Wow. Yeah. See, I was leaning between 7 and 8. It falls probably somewhere in the middle, but I'm going to go 8 now on the basis of Alan's unfair low mark.
I also
I've gone for 4. I've changed
mine
to 4.
No, don't do that,
No.
please. Okay.
No, I don't change mine based on your reviews because I've got integrity.
Okay, fine. 7. No, 8. Oh, can I go 7.5?
All right. I'm giving it an 8. All right. 8, 7.5. And 5, was it, Alan?
Yeah.
Okay, it's got a diminishing return score of 6.9. That's
deserves better.
Yeah, it deserves higher than that, I think.
I've got a Spider-Man question for you. It's a very quick one, this.
Oh.
A simple guess a number. Just one question.
8.
So I'll give you a point for whoever's closest, but 3 points if you get it spot on, okay?
Oh.
How many people are credited in the writing section of this film?
Oh,
Is this who gets an on-screen credit?
Well, I took the information from IMDb, so yeah, I presume it's the same.
Because IMDb will often have
7.
like so-and-so invented this one character.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's got character created by, but
credited
recall,
character created by.
Yeah, none of these are marked as uncredited.
Okay,
these are all credited.
I'm going to go 8.
And going 8.
If anyone turns up twice, is that just one? Like if someone's got a story by...
they're all, these are, I'll give them as individuals, people.
So I reckon you probably had maybe 3 different sets of writers doing credited drafts. Let's say 2 of those were writing partners. That's 5. Then you'll have Stanley, Steve Ditko, 7. And let's chuck someone in on story 8. What did Calvin say, 8?
Yes.
I'll have 7 then.
Okay, so Calvin's gone 8, you've gone 7. The correct answer is 10.
Fucking hell.
Oh!
So Calvin
wow.
just on the closest. You've got, Stan Lee and Steve Ditko, Joe Simon and Jack Kirby as character created by Captain America.
Oh, I forgot he was in it. Yeah, shit.
And then I've got Jonathan Goldstein, John Francis Daly have got a screen story and screenplay credit. And then also screenplay credit, John Watts, Christopher Ford, Chris McKenna, and Eric Sommers.
Oh.
So there you go.
Interesting.
All right, next.
Yes. War for the Planet of the Apes, yes.
War for the Planet of the Apes, yeah.
I think going into this one, after our recording, I was a bit unsure, if I remember, because I loved Rise of the Planet of the Apes. I did really enjoy Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, but it felt like a minor step down for me. And I was just worried that this looked like very much more of the same that we got in Dawn and not kind of a distinct thing of its own. But I was really, really, really impressed with this film. I really loved this film. I thought it was absolutely outstanding. It felt like much like Logan this year, this felt like a real kind of Western done with apes kind of vibe.
Yeah. Likewise. It was sort of even if they don't make any more of these, of the prequel series, it's sort of like a perfect end to a trilogy.
Yeah.
And sort of an accidental trilogy. Like, I know that War had the same director as the previous one, but to say that Rise was just born out of some people had a scary monkey script and wanted to get it made and then just tacked on the Planet of the Apes name and references.
Yeah.
To say that it came to this is quite impressive and quite something.
Yeah. I loved how it made use of Planet of the Apes lore. It obviously the humans are starting to lose their ability to speak and stuff. So it kind of still ties into setting up. I mean, essentially the film ends practically where the first film, the original Planet of the Apes, begins in a sense. They're at that watering hole, which I think is meant to be where the spaceship crashes.
Yeah.
It closes out this arc across 3 films that, like you say, was not even presumably intended when they started it out, but it's a very satisfying arc. It is just remarkably well directed. I was really impressed with Matt Reeves' work on this one. Just the visuals, I mean, the effects were phenomenal. The cinematography, the music, the performances, just everything came together so well. The fact that it really was like a real war film. It was much more akin to Bridge on the River Kwai and stuff like that than I was anticipating. But also the fact, you've got these donkeys, these apes that are working for the humans because they're like, it's this kind of grey area that the film actually gets into a bit, and
I loved that. Yeah. And I wasn't expecting that either, because in previous films it's been so black and white, like humans and apes, and that's it. And then to have that grey area in the middle, I thought was really interesting. Yeah, I really liked it.
Yeah, I found it very emotionally impactful as well. The ending in particular. But I'm sure once again Alan will knock us down.
Oh no, he'd like this one, I think.
I think he'll enjoy elements of it, but he won't like the cutesy, fun chimp that they find. He won't like the fact that it just turns into a prison movie because it's like a different thing.
Well, no, you're both right and wrong. I didn't love it. I thought it was fine. I liked Steve Zahn as a little cheeky ape or whatever he is.
He was great. Yeah.
I thought he was great. I really like Steve Zahn, actually. He's one of those actors who kind of every now and then pops up in an amazing performance, but then he's never quite given the kudos that it deserves. I think the acting in general is great, and we're 3 films in, so it's kind of all been said, but to embody these apes and take on the physical characteristics and still make it all work, it's fantastic. The acting and technology that comes together. This is a future, isn't it?
Yeah. It really blew me away how much of a real film it was. To say it's like a mental blockbuster about CGI apes, the fact that it was like a real film with emotional gravitas and depth and stuff. And I mean, the Planet of the Apes films have always been that to a point, but I did think this one it felt more mature than the 2 that came before it, certainly.
And I do like you've said, in the whole trilogy, that every film has had a very different tone, and they've not they've not tried to just do the same thing again. It is like they've created this whole story, which has turned out to be like Caesar's life, essentially. And seeing him go from, a fun-loving, innocent chimp to like kind of hardened by life to just really quite a brutal leader who's had to do terrible things for the greater good, and it is quite brutal and real.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
My problem with this film was that in terms of the ape human stuff, it did feel like, yeah, we've done this. We've done this now. I thought there was nothing kind of very ape-like about it. If you took this film and did the exact same film, but instead of having them as apes, they were just humans of a different tribe or a different nation, and it was a prison film, it would just be the same. And
I think that's kind of the point, to be honest.
I know, but but at what point does it then not matter anymore? And
well, it's just way more fun if they're apes.
I mean, you could go back to the original film book and say, well, why does it have to be a planet of apes? It could be a planet of tree frogs.
I'm not sure, even I'm sure what I'm trying to say, but there's something about this just didn't quite engage me in the way that I think it was supposed to. And perhaps it is because we're getting so much of the ape side of the story, and then the human side of the story is represented by Woody Harrelson in this kind of very not very nuanced role.
I'll give you that.
And it's like, if you're going to give us some grey area, then give us some grey area. Show us that we're all alike, if that's the analogy you're trying to make.
Woody Harrelson's motive is made clear, and it's not the most unreasonable motive in the world, to give him some credit, but he is portrayed as categorically the bad guy, outright. And
yeah, maybe it's just a bit too black and white in that sense. And he's just doing bloody Colonel Kurtz anyway. It's like, if you're going to do grey area, then let's do the grey area.
I do agree with that. When I watched it, I did wish he'd been a little bit more nuanced. But overall, I mean, I honestly, I was so impressed with this film. Another thing, actually, I want to quickly mention is the score. I think it's got some really beautiful music, and it's not music that I really noticed during the film, but I went back and just kind of listened to the soundtrack at one point, and it brought all the emotion back from that final scene as I was listening to it, and it was like, oh wow, like 90% of the emotion in that scene must just be in this music. It's really quite powerful, and I like it.
It's quite a compliment for Michael Giacchino.
Hey, I think Michael Giacchino is good. You guys might be slagging him off for his...
I didn't think I minded him, but apparently, sounds like video game music to me.
What would you guys give it out of 10?
8 from me.
6.
I give it a 9, which gives that a 7.7 overall. That's our highest rated so far on this part 2 of our review of the year.
Are they going to make another Apes?
I think they almost certainly will.
Because this one got, like, universal acclaim pretty much. It was very well received.
It's a real, it's an ending to the story, but there's no reason why we have to stop here and we can't just keep pushing forward. I know
We've got an Apes cinematic universe.
I know Matt Reeves has said that he has an idea for another one that he'd like to do, and I think that's all it'll take, to be honest. But obviously he's off doing like Batman and stuff, so he might not feel like returning to the franchise. I think... Oh, and you know what? Because I was about to say Fox would be mad not to want another one, but Disney's just bought them out, and maybe they've got enough franchises and they won't care. So maybe that is the end. But I doubt it. I think it's inevitable there'll be another one.
Yeah, somewhere down the line.
Yeah, you know what Disney really loves? Money.
I know, it's just that
if it looks like it's profitable, then they'll do it.
But there's only 52 weeks in a year, Alan, and it's like, you've got 5 Avengers movies coming out, all the X-Men movies, Muppet movie, Star Wars, Simpsons now, probably put a Simpsons movie out in there. So when are you going to find the time to put Planet of the Apes out with all this other stuff?
Yeah, maybe they could cut out a couple of Marvel films.
Without it cannibalising into your other films' profits as well.
Well, you just put them all together. Disney Cinematic Universe.
Hey, I've been figuring this out. Disney, get on the phone, because I want to pitch you a film where like Scar and Jafar and Hades all team up to it's good, man.
Isn't that the House of Mouse?
Yeah, but my idea is good. My idea isn't just a flimsy bookend for cartoons from the 40s being recycled.
Oh.
I've got a Planet of the Apes question for you as well. Well, this is an Andy Serkis based question, actually.
Okay.
There's a few answers. Calvin, I'm going to let you go first as well because you're still behind.
Okay.
So basically, the question is one at a time. Motion capture characters played by Andy Serkis.
Okay, I'm going to go with Snoke. Supreme Leader Snoke.
Supreme Leader Snoke, correct. That's 1 point.
I'll go for the obvious one, Gollum.
Yeah, Gollum. I'm putting Gollum and Smeagol as one in case you're tempted to
Damn it,
That's the same guy, isn't it? He's just got a split personality.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I'm only counting it as one. I'm discounting Caesar as well, just because we have established that one. I think.
Yeah. Oh, Baloo.
He is going to be playing Baloo in Mowgli. I'm going to give you a point for that. It's not out yet.
Yes.
Sol?
King Kong.
Kong!
Of course.
Yes. There are actually two more answers, and just to give you a clue, they're both in the same film, but it's two characters that he plays in one film.
He's not in any of the Robert Zemeckis ones, I don't think.
I'm going to throw a clue at you, and you can shout out whoever gets it first.
All right.
The film also stars Jamie Bell.
Oh, fuck.
I believe Simon Pegg is in it.
Oh, God.
Simon Pegg's in it. It's not Mission Impossible. It's Tintin.
Right.
Fuck.
So what character did he play?
He's Captain Haddock.
Captain Haddock. I'm gonna have to give that to Calvin, I think, because he
Yeah.
did.
But let me see if I can remember he plays two in that.
He plays
movie.
another
So
character
Captain
in it.
Haddock and
He plays, and I don't know if this is a flashback or whatever, but he plays Sir Francis Haddock, who is an ancestor of Captain Haddock. It obviously plays the same thing. Okay, well that was that one. The scores are now 10-9 for Sol, so it's getting very close. Calvin's really bridged that gap.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's next?
Death Note. Which I assume we've all seen this one because it went straight to Netflix.
No.
But you didn't really see the full Death Note, did you?
No. I said I was going to go and watch it, but I haven't actually gone back to it since we talked about it. So there you go. But there's, other things to watch.
Well, I had hopes for Death Note because what I took from watching the series was that you could easily condense this down to a shorter run span and just take the kind of the first third of it and make that a film. And it felt very padded out for me, the TV show. So I thought there was lots to lose, which would have been good. I don't think I'm going to be very controversial by saying this wasn't a very good film, unless you want to disagree with me, Sol.
I'll be honest, I found it quite entertaining for all its flaws. I think it's been...
Right.
I think people have been a bit meaner and harsher with it than they would if it weren't a new version of something that they love. And, do you know what I mean? I think they're quicker to swipe it down for being a bad version of something that they like. But it's got a lot of flaws. It's not great. Willem Dafoe was very good as the Ryuk character, but also very underused, and they sort of tweaked the character and like the rules enough that it changed his character enough to be less interesting. They basically made a few very subtle changes that basically meant that his character was malevolent and like not pleasant and actively out to cause harm, whereas in the original series and films and stuff, that character's basically a completely neutral party who's just there to observe, and I always found that far more interesting than he's just a sneaky demon fucking with people.
What about what they did with L, who in the original he's kind of an idiot savant. He's probably on the spectrum somewhere, but very focused in what he's doing. Whereas in this, it felt like just a kid who was taking on so much sugar that he couldn't quite concentrate on things. And then, but at the end, he just becomes a complete like emotional wreck, hell bent on catching this guy, and it didn't fit with what we established. It didn't fit with the previous incarnation of the character, so they've obviously made a deliberate change there.
I was impressed with how much this did stray from the original source material and kind of went about doing its own thing, but I think they made a lot of bad decisions and were too close to the original source material if they were just gonna do their own thing, if that makes sense. Like, I wouldn't necessarily even have it be this dance between a kid who's a super cop and a high school student if you're going to completely recontextualize the whole thing. It felt very odd. But, yeah, I don't know. It's not great, like you say.
It just, the whole thing needed more depth. It needed more...
Yeah.
And you know, it felt like even with the time they had, they could have definitely got into these questions a little bit more, especially like the moral questions of, you know, you're killing people, even if you're trying to justify it for the greater good. So let's talk about that a little bit. Let's get into that a bit more.
Yeah.
So I mean, I gave it a 5 out of 10.
Yeah, I gave it a 6. So that's 5.5 between us.
I do have a little question here in terms of the quiz, but I couldn't really come up with any good Death Note quiz. So I've just got a few questions here, basic trivia questions about things to do with Death Note. See if you can shout out. Okay, so first one, Adam Wingard, of course, directed this version of Death Note. What is his next project?
Kong Skull Island. No, Godzilla versus King Kong.
Godzilla versus Kong. Yes, that's correct. Just a nice, simple question. What was the first original production made by Netflix?
House of Cards?
House of Cards is correct. Well done.
Was
Very
that
good.
the first? Wow.
Was, yeah. 2013 it came out. One more question, although there's 2 answers to this. Willem Dafoe has been nominated for Best Supporting Actor Oscar twice. What films were they for?
Ooh.
Is one of them a Lars von Trier film? No, wait, he was only in one.
No.
It's going to be a military role or something.
One of them is a military role.
Oh God, what is he in Platoon? What military films is
It is Platoon, I'll give you
Is
it
it
before
Platoon?
you- Yes, it is.
Yes.
Played
Well
Gordon,
done.
He played
That's
Sergeant
deserved.
Gordon Elias in Platoon, yeah.
Oh.
There is another one.
I don't know.
Oh.
He's playing a real person. It's set in it must be is it the 20s? He's playing an actor.
Oh!
I have no idea.
God!
Good.
It's the Werner Herzog film, isn't it? It's the one where he plays Max Schreck.
That's
Oh,
it, yeah,
fuck!
that's the one.
What's it
Wait.
called?
That he got Oscar nominated for Shadow of the Vampire.
Yeah?
Fuck
I really
me.
want to win.
Yeah, I'll have to
that's
give that one to
Calvin.
Calvin, yeah.
Wow, I mean, fair enough. I didn't think that was I thought it was an obscure little weird meta horror movie, not an Oscar contender. I mean, he's good in it. Give him credit.
It's not a Werner Herzog film.
Well,
What's next? Is it?
what?
It's next.
Oh, film.
What's the name of the film, though?
It's next.
No, I know it's up next, but which film?
the film known as It. So who saw this one then? I haven't seen it yet.
Have you not?
Yeah, no. Well, I'd heard mixed things about it. Not that it wasn't good. By the numbers, what you would expect from this sort of film. So that kind of put me off a bit, especially after watching the original version.
I categorically disagree with everything you just said there. I think this is.
I mean, I haven't seen it.
No, I think you should go and watch it. I think you'll enjoy it. It's not that kind of conventional like jump scare horror, if that's what you mean. It's not what you would necessarily expect from quote unquote remake of it. It is and it isn't, but I think it's done really well, and I think it's about as scary as this story could ever possibly be, which isn't that scary because it's a stupid clown thing. But if you're scared by stupid clown nonsense, it's like quite. There's a few images in this film that like I found very, I guess, disturbing is the word. They did kind of stay with me. I was really impressed with it. I really liked it. To say we kind of spent our episodes pulling apart the story and explaining why it's inherently flawed and doesn't make any sense, this is probably the best adaptation of a Stephen King book, or certainly Stephen King horror book, that I've ever seen insofar as it captures the vibe of his work. Because, not on paper, because it is literally on paper, but to glance at Stephen King's work, it shouldn't work a lot of the time, and it often works really well, but it shouldn't do, if that kind of makes sense. There's often like messy strands in there and lazy character archetypes and things that should stop it from being as good as it is. And it's a great example of that because it's this nonsense about a clown that doesn't make any sense. But the film does a really faithful adaptation of that, and it brings it to life well. Yeah,
I agree with all that. I think this is pretty much the best adaptation you can do of this book without completely changing it.
Yeah.
But the problem is the source material is flawed, and we've talked about that on our episode that we did, so I won't go into it. But yeah, it's just a pretty slapdash story. But all the slapdash elements in this film, I can trace back to that. If I'd not read the book or wasn't aware of it that much, I might judge this film a bit more harshly. But this film really feels like it's done the best job it could with that material. And what it does is very good.
Yeah, it's refined the story and made it more efficient in many ways. I really like this film. I thought it was excellent. I've enjoyed pretty much everything I've seen this year, to be honest. But I really like this film. I thought it was genuinely, it captured childhood very well. The performances of the children was for the most part
good
brilliant.
acting all through.
That oh god, what's she called? The one who plays Beverly, Sophia Lillis, is going to be a huge star because she is phenomenal in this film, and I'm calling it now. She will go on to be like a big deal. Pretty much everyone's great in this, apart from that kid from Stranger Things, who I wasn't that into, but everyone else seems to enjoy him. So,
is that the Richie Tozer one?
The comedian one?
Yeah. Oh, I liked him. Yeah, but yeah, I thought that the dialogue they have was very real. Felt like kids, the way they talk. It was well written. Yeah.
Yeah, and of course you've got Bill Skarsgård, taking over the iconic role of Pennywise the Clown himself, and I thought he was brilliant. I mean, I never thought that much of Tim Curry's performance, which might factor into this, and I also have no nostalgia attached to the original TV miniseries, but I thought Bill Skarsgård's take on it, and I don't know how much of it's down to him or how much of it's down to the director, he basically plays it like... It reminded me of, is it anglefish? Like really deep in the ocean, those fish that have a little glow-in-the-dark lure, and they dangle it because it looks like a worm. Well, because obviously Pennywise, as we discussed, is this like intergalactic space spider that takes the form of a clown to fuck with people. It really felt like he was being portrayed as a puppet, and that made him feel really inhuman and genuinely quite unnerving at times, because his eyes keep going cross-eyed in like a really weird way when he's kind of not focused. His movements are really like puppety. Yeah, I thought it was an excellent take on how to portray what is inherently a stupid idea and make it actually very effective and cool. And like I said, I found some of it genuinely quite unnerving. The opening scene with Georgie is almost exactly as it plays out in the miniseries.
Yeah.
It's pretty much the only scene that is almost exactly as it plays out. But it's so much better. It's subtly better because the performance of Pennywise when Tim Curry did it in the original is just creepy and weird. The performance of Bill Skarsgård is like, he actually does come across as like a friendly clown who's trying to lure Georgie into the sewers, but he's inherently fucking creepy. And you get the nuance in Georgie of like not really trusting him, but not quite doing it. And basically, there's a surprisingly gory moment where he doesn't just pull the kid down into the sewer. He like reaches out and bites his arm off, and there's this little child flailing around in the middle of the road, blood going everywhere, severed arm, pulled in screaming. And I wasn't expecting it, but it's so like... just point blank, this is what this is. This kid is like, and it's really quite affecting because of it. And I've got to give it credit for leaving images like that quite stayed with me, really. And also the Georgie storyline has a real emotional weight to it here. The fact that his brother won't drop it is handled really well, and I found it again very emotionally satisfying when he kind of deals with it. And another big thing actually is that in the book, and by extension the miniseries, Pennywise kind of, his fears that he drips in and uses on people, the weird scary forms he takes, are generally like, oh, it's a werewolf because the person saw a werewolf movie and that kind of thing, and it's all a bit like, fuck's sake. This film changes that. So the fears are something I think we mentioned would be better in our episode. The fears are actually, and they don't do the best job in the world, but like they've actually tried to link the fears up with the individual characters. So for example, one of the characters is scared of this painting. It's like an abstract painting of a creepy woman that's in his this office that he goes in sometimes. And so Pennywise like manifests in the form of this malformed like woman from an abstract painting for him. One of the characters, which is basically you, Calvin, is this like uptight germ freak little boy who so Pennywise takes the form of a leper and like runs towards him, and he's terrified of it, which is much like when we used to live together and I would like pretend to be disabled and run after you and you'd be really scared of me.
Oh god, yeah, that is all flashing back now.
But like it's the fact that he actually, you know, he plays on these fears, you know, properly, and it's just a great, inventive, fun film. And there's a few moments that are just bizarre, dotted around in there, but not enough to kind of ruin the film.
What did you think, Alan?
I mean, I'm not disagreeing with anything Saul says, although it seems like he enjoyed it much more than I did. I kind of agree. It did the best it could with what it had, and I enjoyed a lot of it. But I've got a feeling he's going to go a lot higher than me on the ratings.
Okay. I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing it, and I know that obviously the second one is coming out in 2019.
Yeah, I can't wait to see how that comes together, actually. I think you will really like it, Calvin. I'm surprised you haven't seen it, to be honest.
Yeah. No, it's just been hard this year to get to the cinema to see these things, and, you know.
I give it an 8 out of 10 anyway.
I gave it a 7.
Oh, okay. It's not too bad.
Yeah. Solid 7.
7.5. Diminishing Returns.
Oh, I have got a question here about clowns.
Hooray!
This is relatively easy, this one, so it's going to be... I think maybe shout out and we'll see who can react quickest. Okay, I'm going to name a film or / TV show, and you have to tell me the actor who plays a clown in it. Or has played a clown.
Okay. This is good.
Okay, so let's start with The Dark Knight.
Heath Ledger.
That was Calvin.
Yes.
The Simpsons.
Dan Castellaneta.
Yes.
Kelsey Grammer.
Yes, Kelsey Grammer.
David Hyde Pierce. He was an attempted clown.
Okay, we'll have to stop there, otherwise there's too many clowns there. The Greatest Show on Earth.
The Greatest Show on Earth.
This is a film from... Go on.
Is it someone like Kirk Douglas, or...?
No, you're thinking of the Bible. Yeah, this is a film from the 50s, I think it was, set in a circus.
Yeah, I don't know.
He won an Oscar for this, I believe.
Laurence Olivier.
No?
I don't know.
It's James Stewart.
Really? Oh!
Okay.
Huh. Can't imagine him as a clown.
Vulgar. If you know the film Vulgar, I did reference it in our episode.
Divine.
No. Good guess, though. No,
that guy from Clerks.
Kevin Smith.
The guy, Dante.
I'm going to have to give you that. It is him, Brian O'Halloran. I'll give you that, though, because
Brian O'Halloran.
You've gone straight there. I don't know if you'll know this one. In Living Colour.
Oh, God, I know the name.
Tobey Maguire. No.
In Living Colour is a TV show. It was a sketch comedy show from...
Oh, Jim Carrey.
It's not Jim Carrey, but...
The guy from Jumanji.
Right show.
Andy Kaufman.
No. Okay, I'll have to go. That one was Damon Wayans. He plays Homie the Clown, who was sort of a recurring character they did in that show. Octopussy.
Oh, Roger Moore.
Yes, well done. And last one, Quick Change.
Oh, don't know.
Quick Change. Film in which this actor plays a character who robs a bank dressed as a clown.
Billy Bob Thornton.
Nope. No, you don't know it?
Worth a stab.
Nope.
It was Bill Murray.
Oh, I got the first name. The first 4 letters.
Okay, well done. Okay, what's next?
How are we doing with points? Who's winning?
It's currently 15 to Saul, 13 to Calvin.
Ooh.
So all to play.
Pulling away, I've got an extra point. Brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
Next up was we did the Lego Batman movie because the Lego Ninjago movie was coming out.
Yeah.
Which I have not seen.
I haven't seen it. Alan?
Yeah, I've seen it.
Right, and...
Well, I mean, it was exactly what I expected, I suppose. I don't know anything about Ninjago, or like the backstory of it, so I don't know, but this is basically Power Rangers with Lego. It's the same story. It's these like 5 teenagers who secretly are like superhero
with attitude.
people. Yeah, exactly. And then they have these like little robot animal things that they get into and fight the bad guy. But it was very much the same tone as the other Lego films, that kind of slightly sarcastic and self-referential, but not quite as much with this because it is just aimed at kids. And it was just, I mean, there's not a lot to say. It was just a lot of nonsense, really, you know. But I think it did what it was supposed to do.
Oh, okay.
Out of 10?
5.
Oh.
This is very by the number. It's very obvious. Everything they do is really obvious. What the really odd sort of moral lesson from it all is that basically this kid and his dad hates him and doesn't have anything to do with him. But then they like reconcile at the end, they reconcile because the child like accepts him and forgives him and stuff like this. So, like, it was a really weird lesson to teach children, I think. Like, even if your father ignores you for the first 18 years of your life, you still need to make compromises and sacrifices in order to let him into your life. Weird. A bit weird, if you ask me.
That is odd.
Any quiz questions for this one?
Oh, right. I've got a good one for this. And I'm going to give some good points available for this. So a chance for one of you to take the lead, right? But it's not about Ninjago, because obviously no one knows anything about that. So this is about the Lego Batman film, right? And now we're going to have a bidding system here. So basically, we'll let Calvin go first, because he's behind. But the question is, how many credited cast members from the Lego Batman movie can you name?
Ooh.
Oh.
Okay, so how actors who provide a voice
Batman film.
in the Lego Batman movie. But the thing is, you have to give me a number, like how many you think. Say you think you can get 8, then say 8.
Oh, right.
And then Saul either goes higher, in which he has to do 9, or he can say, okay, go, and challenge you to do it. So, Calvin, you have to set a precedent here by...
Okay.
And then Saul can go over you, and then you can rebid to go higher again if you want. You give me a number that you think you can get, and then Saul either has to go higher or let you do it and challenge you to do it. And then if you make a mistake, he gets the points. But the amount of points you get is the amount that you get. So if you said 8, for example, you'll get 8 points and Saul will get nothing.
I can do 7.
Okay, Calvin has gone for 7. Saul, you can bid higher, but then Calvin can outbid you again. So if you go 8...
I reckon I can do 8.
Okay, he's gone 8. Now, Calvin, you can either go 9... or you can say, Saul, complete the challenge. In which case, if he fails, you'll get 8.
No, I'm going to have to let him do it.
Okay, Saul, you have to name 8 without error, by the way.
Okay.
You can't just throw a load of names at me.
Alright, so if I get any wrong, that's bad.
Yes, okay, actually, I've got a thing. When you go wrong before the 8, then Calvin has to name 1 more that you haven't named already, if that makes sense.
Ooh.
So if you get 7, then at least you're making it difficult for him to steal the points.
Wait, what? If I get one wrong,
yeah,
then Calvin
has a chance to steal.
Okay, I see. Right.
So my point is, give the obvious ones first, because you want to know the ones you definitely get right. Okay, I've pulled up the cast list, so I should have a full list here. So we need 8, so go.
Okay. Will Arnett.
Will Arnett, of course, plays Batman, the lead. That's 1.
Michael Cera.
Plays Robin, yeah, that's 2.
Zach Galifianakis.
Zach Galifianakis, who plays the Joker, 3.
Ralph Fiennes.
Ralph Fiennes is Alfred the Butler, that's 4.
Jenny Slate.
Jenny Slate plays Harley Quinn, that's 5.
Conan O'Brien.
Conan O'Brien is the Riddler, that is 6.
Damn it, he's done it.
Jermaine Clement.
Jermaine Clement, he is in there somewhere, isn't he? Hang on, Jermaine Clement, who is the voice of, do you know?
Sauron?
He plays Sauron, well done. That's 7, you need just 1 more.
Eddie Izzard.
Eddie Izzard, who provided the voice of Voldemort. You've got 8, well done. Should we get any more?
Should we see how many more I can get?
Yeah, go on.
Alright. Is Rosario Dawson, what's she called? Rosario Dawson, is that the Batgirl?
Yeah, Rosario Dawson is Batgirl.
I didn't want to guess because I wasn't certain.
Yeah, that was the main, the one of the main cast that you didn't get.
Okay.
So yeah,
is Jonah Hill in it? Is Aquaman, or is that just the Lego movie?
Jonah Hill is in it as Green Lantern.
Green Lantern, yeah.
He's credited as. So there you go.
Richard Cheese is technically a lounge singer. I don't know if he'd be credited as a cast member or just for the music.
He's credited as Mark Jonathan Davis is credited as a lounge singer. Is that him? Is that his real name?
Possibly. I think that's it for me, though. I can't think of any others.
I think I could add 2 more to that.
Yeah, hang on, Mark Jonathan Davis is Richard Cheese, yeah.
Oh, Billy D. Williams is in it. Billy D. Williams.
Yeah, that was one of them.
Yeah, Billy D. Williams is in it, yeah. What was the other one then, Calvin?
Channing Tatum?
Fuck. Yeah, he was Superman, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And Ellie Kemper.
Ellie Kemper, yes, as Phyllis. She's
that, like, floating brick in the nether realm.
I'm so upset that I've lost so many points on that one.
A big points boost. That was the big points winner, that one. I think you got all the obvious ones, really. Seth Green is in it as King Kong, apparently. Okay, so that's it. Next.
Right. Calvin, your favourite?
Kingsman, The Golden Circle. I saw it. Who else did?
I saw it.
I didn't, so I'll just let you two talk amongst yourselves for a bit.
Well, what did you think, Alan? General opinion was that this one was much of a step down from the first one.
Yeah, I've heard it's shite.
I absolutely hated it. It was like they couldn't possibly have made this film any worse. Like every single decision they made was the wrong decision. It is unfathomable how bad this film is. Like compared to the first one.
Oh, I really liked it. I liked it a lot. It was like a lesser Bond film, I should say, like one of the lesser Bond films.
Well, I guess with your Bond heritage, you've got a high tolerance for shit films.
But it was, I had a lot of fun, a lot of good gadgets. I really loved Julianne Moore as the villainess.
No, she should be ashamed of herself.
How is it so bad? Because, like, to look at the trailers, it just looks like more of the same, but maybe not.
It's more of the same, but probably objectively not as good. But I have a lot of fun with it, and it ticks more of my personal boxes.
It's like if you looked at the first film and you go, okay, these are all the things I liked about it, and these are all the things I didn't like about it, and then you take all the things you didn't like, ramp them up to 11 and make a film out of that. That's what this film was. What's his face? Is it Matthew Vaughn? It was like, in the first film, he'd wanted to do all this and someone had said, well, no, let's make it a bit good at least. And then in this one, they just let him do whatever he wanted, and it is shit.
I'm very disappointed and unnecessary with both the way and that they did bring Colin Firth back. Completely unnecessary.
How do they do it?
Oh, it's some bullshit about they've got some special serum and a way of if you'll get shot in the head, we can inject you with this and put this on your head and then it'll all be fine.
Yeah.
That's bullshit.
Yeah, it's really...
Well, that completely undermines death as a stake in that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, there is a point later on in the film where, in the film as we see it, there's another character, I'm not going to spoil who it is, but another character meets their end, and in the original version of the film, that character was brought back at the end with, like, robot legs or something, and that was... But then test audiences reacted very badly to that, because it was like, well, you bring Colin Firth back, and then you bring this guy back, so who is gonna, there's no stakes to it at all because you can kill someone but they're not actually dead, so who cares? But even more than that, it just undermines Eggsy's role in it. Like, Taron Egerton is still sort of like, his character is surely the star of this franchise, but he's just sort of like pushed into the background so that Colin Firth and Channing Tatum and all these other people can have their moments.
Do you think they'll do a third one, or do you think this is the Kick-Ass 2 that has, like, just killed the franchise dead in its tracks?
All the people involved seem very keen on doing a third one, and Dwayne Johnson is apparently the number one pick for villain of that film.
Nice.
So, I will say that a lot of the people in this film, they've got a lot of names in here, like Michael Gambon turns up, like, randomly for, like, 2 very short scenes. But a lot of the more well-known names do feel like they're in here. Channing Tatum's barely in it, despite prominent billing on the poster, and it feels like...
That's it, yeah. Channing Tatum's practically the whole trailer, and then they just find a reason where his character has to, like, go away for an hour. And then he comes
it does
back
feel
at the
like
end.
they got these names, and it was like someone was mates with someone, and it's like, oh, we really want you in the film. Oh, I've only got a week, and then I'm flying out to do this other thing. Oh, it's fine, come in, we'll just do you on a green screen and put you in.
And the
wherever.
same with Julianne Moore, like... Her scenes, like the villain is like off in a hideaway and doesn't. So you see her on video link and stuff like that, but she doesn't interact with any of the characters until sort of a final showdown. Plus everything, like her little jungle hideaway that she has, everything about it looks completely fake. It looks like it's been made on like a computer animation software from like 2012 or something like that. It's not quite up to scratch. It's just it really does feel like a group of friends making a film that they find funny.
But I really liked it anyway.
Out of 10?
I would give it 7.
3.
Ooh.
Ooh. Well, there we go. Harsh ratings from Alan on this one. Have we seen anything that you like yet?
I don't know actually. What have I done so far? I haven't got a list.
He gave it a 7.
Yeah, I liked it. 7.
That's the highest so far.
7. I really liked it though. 7 is kind of reflective of the kind of bad material, but it was very well produced piece.
Yeah.
It was a good 7. I've got a little quiz question for you though. Because Kingsman, of course. Calvin, you'll have to go first on this one, I think. Give you a chance. We'll alternate. One of the writers on Kingsman, of course, was Jane Goldman.
Yes.
So the question is, just one at a time, I want you to name the other films on which she has a writing credit. We're not including the Kingsman films because we've covered those. So anything else?
Okay. Well, Kick-Ass.
Kick-Ass, yes. Hang on, let me just write down your points. Kick-Ass, yes. Sol?
Miss Peregrine's Home for Mental Cases. Which I'm going for first, because I'm going to try and take out the ones Calvin definitely knows first.
Yes, Miss Peregrine's Home for Kooky Kids, yes.
Stardust?
Stardust, yes.
The Lighthouse Golem.
The Limehouse Golem, yeah. I'll
Limehouse Golem.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I haven't seen it. I assumed it was about a golem in a lighthouse. Yeah.
X-Men First Class?
Yes.
The Woman in Black.
Yes. You know you're Jane Goldman, don't you?
Oh God! Now I'm
completely out now. I am I've milked myself dry.
Yeah, me too. I think we're 3 apiece, aren't we?
Are there more?
You've pretty much got the major ones there. So I think we'll have to leave it there. You equaled each other there, so no change in the score. But I'll tell you exactly what she's credited for as a writer. She's first thing she's credited is additional material on a TV show called Baddiel Syndrome, which was a sitcom project for David Baddiel, which was on Sky. Something called The Debt.
Okay.
The Debt.
No idea what that is.
No, I don't know what it is. She's apparently credited for a short called James Bond Supports International Women's Day.
Oh yes, that's Daniel Craig in drag.
Yeah.
Woman in Black, and then she's credited as story by for X-Men Days of Future Past.
Yeah.
Whatever that means. And then apparently what she's got announced, which whatever that means.
Oh, she's working on a Game of Thrones spin-off.
A Game of Thrones spin-off, yes.
But that might not be the one that they go with, because I think they've got about 5 spin-offs in development, and they're just going to pick the one they like most.
Yeah. Kingsman 3 is on here, but who knows how official that is. And The Little Mermaid, apparently she is involved in that, or at least that's what it says on IMDb. I guess that's not official yet.
Okay. Next is Blade Runner.
Yes. You guys seen this one?
Nope.
Yep.
If you recall our Blade Runner episode, I was a big fan of Blade Runner who then rewatched Blade Runner and didn't understand why I liked it so much in the first place. I really enjoyed the sequel. I thought it was better than Blade Runner. I thought it was great. It's kind of everything that I still enjoyed about Blade Runner here, and just far more compelling and beautifully shot and stuff. Music's not as good. That's the one thing that's better in the first one. It creates more of an atmosphere. But everything else, I mean, so as we have, I'm going to mention this now because it's going to come back again later on, but as I've mentioned on many past episodes, I really like seeing old versions of characters when they're like old men or women. And I've been thinking about why that is lately, and I think it's because the hero's journey has been completed, but obviously the ending of a story is arbitrary, and like if it's a happy ending or like a satisfying conclusion, it's just down to when you end it. Because if you then keep the story going, it always, becomes less of a happy ending and things go up and down. And I think it's really interesting to explore that with characters getting older and what have you, and how the events of the films fall out and what have you. And this film is obviously a sequel to Blade Runner, set 30 years on, and it features a hell of a lot of Harrison Ford as Deckard, as an old man. So I really enjoyed that, and seeing how his story had kind of unfurled. Aesthetically, I thought it was beautiful to look at. everything about how it was put together was great. Really like inventive, loads of ideas and bits of technology and stuff that weren't in the first film but fit that world, but were kind of a more modern take on it, I guess, for our age. Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Well, I didn't like it, but it was better than the original. I'll give it that.
Oh.
But it felt like a very kind of worthy successor in the sense that it was kind of slow, ponderous, and didn't actually say anything of any value.
It was very slow and deliberate, but I think it really built a lovely atmosphere around the story it was telling. I was happy to go with it. It's not something I'd want to return to again and again and again because it is slow and hard work, but I really enjoyed it. I don't know, I thought it was just a further development of the same themes about at what point you become human.
But it doesn't develop it at all. It just sort of, at what point does it ask any of these questions? Or even attempt to give an answer, or at least even discuss the answer. It uses that as a framework, but never gets into it at all. It's just really frustrating, like the first one was.
Well, no, I don't know. There's a major spoiler in it that I don't want to give away too much, but that's a big part of why I think it does say something. I thought it worked, and like you say, I thought it was a worthy successor. I preferred it to the original. It was completely in spirit and in keeping like with the original. Arguably better made, very inventive, expanded the world instead of just like repeating it. I suppose I should very quickly address that it's been heavily criticised by people for misogynist undertones, which I think is horseshit because it...
Really?
Oh yeah, quite a few like people and places have been criticising it for being misogynist, and I think those people are fucking idiots because it isn't misogynist. It is a film that portrays misogyny. That is not the same thing as being a misogynist film. The film is critical of the world it portrays, much like the original film was critical of the world it portrays. The fact that there are prostitutes in the film, or he's got a one of the characters is Ryan Gosling's sort of girlfriend, but she's like an artificial holographic girlfriend that it's like an Alexa or Amazon Google Echo type thing, but it's like a holographic woman that he kind of gets to do everything and tweaks to like his whims, and like people have taken stuff like that as like misogynist. Oh, it's just a male fantasy, and it's like, no, the film's clearly being very critical about this lonely man and the fact that he's not going to get like human companionship out of that and so on. There's a scene at the end when that product like approaches him and speaks to him and makes it very clear that the relationship we were shown was completely artificial. And I liked it. I thought it was thought-provoking. I thought it answered questions as much as it needed to. The fact that it didn't like it. It was more of a study of loneliness, I think, and the human condition, and perhaps than like what it means to be human and a completely specific.
Yeah, I like that actually. Yeah, it's definitely about lonely, men, but lonely people. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's quite an interesting way of looking at it, actually. What did you think of Jared Leto?
Oh, he's shit, isn't he? Can we stop putting him in films, please?
It's just he always tries so hard, and it's like sometimes you don't have to create a whole character that you've lived as for 6 months to just play the fucking part. Oh God, just stop it, Jared. Like, stop it.
He's very popular for some reason, isn't he? Yeah. I guess he's a very good-looking man.
He was in a band. That's why I don't like him. That role was, I don't know if it's confirmed it was that role specifically. The director said he wanted David Bowie to be in the film to play a role, and watching the film, it's obviously that role. So I think that would have worked a lot better, but I don't think David Bowie would have been like, I don't think he would have come across as such a prick playing it. So, yeah, I mean, it's not a perfect film, and Jared Leto is one of the weaker elements, but Harrison Ford's good.
It's Harrison Ford, does what he needs.
But it's good Harrison Ford, you know. It's
he's definitely putting the effort in. Okay, what did you give it out of 10?
8.
I gave it 5.
Ooh, you're such a mean critic, Alan.
I'm trying to figure out if there's any films coming up that I enjoyed.
You're leading up to like Jumanji, aren't you? Which you're probably going to give a 9.
I bet he does. God, you.
I'm like, oh, it does what it says on the tin. And, Dwayne Johnson's brilliant.
Well,
he's brilliant at what he does. He is.
He's got his tongue firmly in cheek, and he What was next?
Well, I've got a question for you first. I've got a quiz question for you here. This is a Harrison Ford based question. Better let Calvin go first. Still behind. Okay, I want you to name characters. Rick Deckard is one of them. I've got 4 other answers. Characters played by Harrison Ford in more than one film.
Ooh.
There's one very obvious one. Two very obvious
ones. Well, I'll go for Han Solo then.
Are there 4 left or 4
There's
including
4
Deckard?
more after Deckard. So,
Han Solo.
Han Solo, yes, of course.
Indiana Jones.
So that's your 2 obvious answers.
Yeah.
The other 2 are less obvious. One of them is, I don't think you'll definitely not get, but one of them is pretty well known.
Oh, Jack Ryan.
Jack Ryan, there you go, well done. There's one more, and I don't think you'll get it. I certainly didn't know it.
Did they ever make a sequel to Ender's Game?
No.
It is the character of Bob Falfer that he played in American Graffiti. And then in the sequel, which was more American Graffiti, he's in that. I think it must just be a little cameo because it was uncredited. But technically, I believe that is a great answer. I haven't seen that one, so I'm not really sure. But
and did he ever reprise his role from The Fugitive in something?
I was wondering that was the train of thought that got me onto Jack Ryan.
I definitely checked that one because there is a sequel to The Fugitive in which Harrison...
Is there?
Well, it's called US Marshals.
Yeah,
but it follows Tommy Lee Jones
spin-off.
Chasing someone else, Wesley Snipes, I think, rather than chasing him. But yeah, that was one I thought might come up, but nope. That is it, as far as I know, unless there are some things that I'm not aware of. Calvin made up 1 point there, so that's something.
I find it quite arbitrary how these points are decided. Like, Saul gets 8 for guessing all the cast members.
That's it. Some rounds
get, like, 1.
Some rounds are big money rounds. You have to make the gamble.
Anyway, should we talk about Cult of Chucky?
Yeah, so I haven't seen this one yet, bizarrely, because I do want to, but...
Yeah, I thought you would have done.
But yeah, my point being, no spoilers, please.
Oh, yeah, no, and there's probably reason for that. There are a couple of twists
I understand
in this
it
one.
goes a bit mad near the end, but...
Yeah, which I really liked. I didn't like it as much as Curse of Chucky, but this was more of the same thing. Like, it's, 2 years on, isn't it? And it's in the mental institute that Fiona Dourif has ended up in. And yes, obviously more killings, more doll-related stuff. But the kid from the first film, Alex Vincent, he comes back. He had a little cameo in the post-credits scene at the end of the previous film. But he's back for Yes. He's got like a proper role in this.
And Jennifer Tilly is in it as well, right?
Yes, as...
Well, actually, this is a question I want to ask. Who the hell is Jennifer Tilly playing? Is she playing Jennifer Tilly or Tiffany or the character that Jennifer Tilly was acting as? It's such a mess, the continuity of this.
It's Tiffany.
No, the continuity makes perfect sense. Yeah, it's Tiffany inhabiting the body of Jennifer Tilly, as we saw in the seed of Chucky.
So it's Tiffany who looks like Jennifer Tilly, because she was played by Jennifer Tilly, who was then put into a doll, who then took it over the body of Jennifer Tilly.
And they make a point of that at one point.
You really struggle with it, Alan. It's not that complicated. It's like it's played as a joke how silly it is as well. So you can't kind of scoff at it because they're doing it on purpose.
Yeah, but in this film, someone goes to her, "Oh, you look like Jennifer Tilly," and she goes, "Yeah, I know."
Yeah,
get that all the time.
Probably felt they had to acknowledge it.
Yeah, because obviously she is now a Hollywood star in this universe. Well, Hollywood star. Actress, I guess. I mean, that was the thing that took me out of the film. The fact that someone would know, like, oh my god, you look like Jennifer Tilly, like, without even... Because at first she says, oh, you look really familiar. And I thought, oh, they're going to be like, oh, have you seen Liar Liar? Or something like that. But no, she's like, oh no, Jennifer Tilly.
It'd be more realistic if they heard her speaking and they were like, oh, you sound really familiar. Do you voice about 500 cartoon characters?
You look like you've got you look like you've had a bit of an easy life. Did you divorce someone in the early years of developing The Simpsons and get a good divorce deal out of that? Anyway, yeah, she's in it, certainly more than the last film again. And yeah, actually, that was one of the things that I was going to praise about this series, really, just the level of continuity involved in it. Like, it's very much Don Mancini's series. He's writing and directing them, and he seems like the de facto writer-director now. But just how he tries to tie them all back together again, even like number 2, 3, and 5 that felt like sort of their own things. Yeah, I really like that.
I felt like this suffered under the weight of that. Like, bringing Andy Barclay into it, bringing Jennifer Tilly into it, really distracted from what the main story should have been, and that was...
Is that not the gimmick of this one, though? Like, the whole point of this one, from what I can gather, is that it's the big crossover celebration of the franchise to date.
Brings it all together.
Is that not what it is?
I wouldn't say it's...
If it was, it didn't work.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's a celebration. I mean, it brings it more together. Like, at the end of the last one, it was more just cute cameos from Andy Barclay and Jennifer Tilly, and you could allude that it was all set in the same sort of timeline universe, what have you. But this one very much brings them into the story.
What I like what they set up was you've got the girl from the previous film. She's in this psychiatric. Well, it's not even a prison, is it?
No, it's medium security, I believe.
But then there's all these new characters that are, have their own mental illnesses, whatever they may be. They're not very specified. And so you have all these new characters that get established, and then, like, that's what I wanted, just more of that. Like, let's establish this, and then someone introduces this doll, and then then people start dying, and you're like, oh, right, who's doing that? There's a doll up to something, all that. I don't know, I wanted more of that, really, and I think it did really well. What I liked about it was that it created this world really well on a small budget. It was obviously low budget, but they keep the vast majority of it in this little, mental hospital that is all very sleek and clean lines and all that sort of stuff, which means it evokes an atmosphere without really having to do a lot of production design and that sort of thing.
It's basically like, 2 corridors, 2 bedrooms, an office, a mess, like canteen, and that's kind of it, really. But I do think more of these sort of classic horror franchises should look to going down this route. Like, they're always trying to reinvent Nightmare on Elm Street and Halloween and Texas Chainsaw Massacre, when actually I think if you just sort of, get a good team together, someone who's quite passionate about keeping the spirit alive and has a good vision, then just let them make these sort of lower budget fares that are actually quite good and in keeping with the rest of the series. And
well, it looks like Halloween is doing that, but perhaps on a bigger scale.
Well, no, but I mean, that continuity is all fucked up. I can't even imagine how you try and make that work. But so yeah, very good entry for what it is comparatively. This could very well be the last sort of film in the series. Don Mancini's talked about he wants to do Chucky on the Orient Express. And
oh, that's brilliant! Oh, I love Don Mancini. I am on board at this point. I'm on board for whatever Don Mancini wants to do, because he's constantly coming up with weird.
Okay, well, do you want to know his other 2 ideas? Because one of them is very obviously Chucky in space, so fair enough.
I'd be well up for that at this point.
The other one is Child's Play on Elm Street.
Oh, yeah, I know I mentioned this.
Did you?
Child's Play episode.
Oh, okay then. Yeah, apparently he'd been having talks to New Line Cinema about crossing over the 2 franchises.
Oh, they actually he's spoken to them.
Apparently, yeah.
Oh, when I read about this when we did our episode, he said it was an idea he had that he liked, but probably wouldn't happen because of rights issues.
Oh, I read that he'd had conversations with New Line about it, because I guess they'll be looking to sort of reinvent A Nightmare on Elm Street, because that's sort of sitting and not doing much right now.
That sounds like it's taken steps forward, which is encouraging. Because I'm all for that. I think this series has gone mad, so it kind of has to continue going more and more mad for a bit. And yeah, I'm up for all of those ideas. I want to see Chucky in space. I want to see Chucky crossing over with other franchises, and I want to see Chucky on the Orient Express. That I'm so down for all of those.
So, should we do ratings for this one?
I give it 6.
I'll probably go 7, but it's a high 7.
On par with Blade Runner.
Yeah.
6.5 from Diminishing Returns.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, I've got a question for you before we move on.
Okay, quiz.
This one is going to be high-low.
Okay.
We're going high-low.
High-low.
I guess we'll... This is higher or lower. I'm going to give you the IMDb rating for Child's Play. And then we're going to go through the franchise going higher or lower for IMDb ratings. Okay, so Child's Play, the IMDb rating is 6.6 So
it deserves more than that. That's madness.
Child's Play 2, higher or lower?
Lower.
Lower, yeah, that's an obvious one. Definitely lower to Child's Play 2, which is 5.8.
Wow.
Okay.
Okay, so Child's Play 3, high, low?
Lower?
Both going lower. Child's Play 3 has a rating of 5.0.
Ah, yep.
So it is indeed lower.
Okay.
So next is Bride of Chucky. Is that higher or lower than 5.0?
Higher. Definitely.
Definitely higher?
Yeah.
It's 5.4.
Yeah.
So it is higher, but not a lot.
But less than 2. That's...
I'm surprised it's that low, actually, compared
Yeah.
to the others. But
I thought it could well be the highest of the series apart from the first one, or maybe it is.
So Bride of Chucky, 5.4. Next we have Seed of Chucky.
Lower.
Lower, both going lower.
Yeah.
Seed of Chucky is 4.9.
Ooh.
So it was indeed lower.
Quite like that one.
The next one is, of course, Curse of Chucky. Is that higher or lower than 4.9?
Higher.
It is
Definitely
5.6.
That's a big jump up.
And then the last one, of course, Cult of Chucky.
Now's where
Lower.
it gets difficult. I'm going to say
So
higher.
5.6 is our reference point. Is it higher or lower?
I'm going to say
think low.
higher.
So you disagreeing? Calvin
Yeah.
going higher? It is 5.2. So
Oh.
it is lower. Sol, even though he hasn't seen it. Has got- so
People
you're-
really liked the one in the house, Curse of
Curse.
Chucky.
Mm.
Yeah.
I thought the reception to this one was pretty good, but
I mean, this ranges from 6.6 for the first one, 4.9 Seed of Chucky is the lowest, and like apart from the first one, they go from 4.9 to 5.8. It's not a huge range, but I think that says a lot about the franchise. It hasn't had a real bomb, has it? It hasn't had
Well, Seed of Chucky is the one people would point to, but I think with time, people have come to appreciate how mental a film it is, and yeah.
Shall we press on?
Yeah.
Saw.
Saw.
Jigsaw. I've not seen this one.
Me neither.
I just watched it yesterday. I watched it last night because it was the one film I hadn't seen.
Is it everything we expected, just more of the same, but perhaps slightly better direction?
It's exactly the same. It's as if they'd never stopped and they just did another one. The direction is no different as far as I can tell from anything else. Those last few ones where it was really like proper soap acting, it's not as bad as that. I mean, if you're going to leave it a few years and then sort of reboot it, you could kind of come out with a new cast or like a new villain who's taken on the mantle or something, which obviously they have to do. And obviously, like in all the other ones, it's like, oh, one of these people is going to be like working at Saw or working as his apprentice or whatever.
He's not called Saw.
If they were going to reboot it, they should have really gone for something a little bit new. Use the branding, but create a new idea, and still use those traps and like the kind of central theme, but create a new storyline. And they haven't. They've basically just tied it into what it was before.
I don't think there's an issue with them doing, like, tying into the original killer and all that, but I do think it's a shame if they haven't taken the extra time they've had to develop this one and put it together. They're not rushing it out within a year to meet a Halloween deadline, you know?
If you watched the first, let's say, 3 Saw films, and then someone showed you this and said it was Saw 4, you would not question that at all. It would entirely fit.
What do you give out of 10?
5.
That's not bad.
Yeah.
I mean, it does what it sets out to do. It just seems a bit pointless.
Are they making any more? Is there any talk of it?
I haven't looked into it. I'd be very interested to know, because I don't know. I don't know if the appetite's quite there for lots more. I think it's something you can get away with, like, oh, it's been 10 years and we're going to do another one. I'm sure there'll be more. Like, I don't doubt for a second there will be more. It's just a question of if it'll be rushed out to meet a deadline of Halloween next year, or if it'll be, like, 10 years from now. Do you have a question for us? A quiz for Saw?
I do. It's quite an open question, this, though. So let's see how many you get. Again, I think we'll take it in turns. Let Calvin go first. But basically, there's going to be a few obvious answers here, but then I'll see how many others you get. I want the name of actors who have appeared in any Saw film.
Carrie Elwes.
I think I could get about 4. Carrie Elwes, yes.
Tobin Bell?
Oh, damn it. I didn't know if you'd get that.
Of course.
Which Wahlberg is it? It's, I want to say Donnie Wahlberg?
Donnie Wahlberg, correct, yes.
Right. Now I'm struggling.
Danny Glover.
Oh, damn it, he is in one,
Danny
isn't he?
Glover, yes, correct.
I feel like there's someone else in the first one who is like...
Yeah, I remember his first name.
No, Lee Wan-el.
Lee Wan-el, yeah, who also, of course, created the series with James Wan.
Yes.
Right. There's got to be... Oh, I don't know. In the first one, there was that actor called Lawrence something, or is that the character?
That's the character.
That's Cary Elwes' character.
All right, I'm spent then.
Can I say one more?
Yeah?
Costas Mandalore.
Yes.
I'm surprised that I forgot that name for so long, because that is a special kind of name. Anyway.
I mean, you have kind of picked out all the ones that I might have possibly have got. So I don't know where else to get. The one sort of major character I think that you haven't got is...
The wife, the girlfriend.
There's the wife, but also Amanda, who is like becomes his little protege.
Shawnee Smith.
Shawnee Smith, I'm giving you a point for that, Calvin.
Oh, yay.
Cheeky bonus point. Yeah, the wife is played by someone called Betsy Russell.
Yeah, I wouldn't have got that.
And then there's...
I knew that name.
And then it's all names I don't know after that, really.
It's all like soap stars. And,
Yeah. Hang on, let me see. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 between you.
That's not bad.
That's not too bad, is it, for 8 films?
Yeah, not bad at all.
You made up a little bit of ground there, Calvin. You're 7 points behind. Only 2 questions left, so...
Well, you're not just 5 films.
I know, but I ran out of time when I was making the quiz.
Oh, I don't appreciate this.
I hope it's a Star Wars one.
Next up is Thor, Ragnarok.
I haven't seen it, despite being invited to 3 free screenings.
How come?
Well, I've made my feelings on Marvel series quite clear.
Yeah, but then you watched Spider-Man and you enjoyed it.
Yeah, but that was only like 2 months ago, and it's like, yeah. It's like if a new Chucky film came out like every 3 months, I'd probably get sick of it.
But they're so different, though. This is such a different
they're exactly
thing.
the same.
Calvin, have you seen Guardians of the Galaxy?
Yes, the first one.
You've seen this film, then don't worry about it. It's just exactly the same as that.
It's not. This film is...
Go on, then justify this, because you fucking love this film, so go on.
This film is everything I wanted Guardians of the Galaxy to be, and it wasn't. Which is mental, offbeat, funny, space, like, opera, romp, constantly inventive. It's so much fun. It's actually funny, first point. All like, because it's Taika Waititi, who's brilliant. It's got that New Zealander sense of humour.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically just a comedy outright, rather than like a funny action movie, which I'm all for. I know you seem to take issue with that idea, Alan. But...
Well, my issue with it is that if you're going to have the Thor universe, the Thor franchise, then it's set a tone in the first film and the second film that this completely shifts. And it's completely shifted
the tone. The tone of Thor was, it's kind of a fish out of water comedy, but they don't go far enough with the comedy. Then the second Thor got a lot more self-important and wasn't as good. And the third Thor is, all right, we're going to go in the other direction and make it an outright comedy instead of all serious like that last one.
It really feels desperate. It really feels like, oh, well, look, Guardians of the Galaxy is doing well. Deadpool was really popular. Let's just make it a comedy. That's what we should do. God, don't lose money, please, God.
I don't think it feels desperate at all. I think it feels like Marvel coming into their own, knowing what they're doing. It's been massively successful. And...
But you yourself say that the advantage of a cinematic universe is that the different strands have their own flavors, and then you can bring them together.
Think they do.
So why are they just doing with Thor? They're just copying the other one.
No, they're not. It's Guardians of the Galaxy is like, it's one thing, and I mean, I would argue that this does feel different, like subtly. I can see where you're coming from. They're both set in space, but you know that it's nothing like Iron Man 2 or 3. Iron Man's got a sense of humor. The films all have a sense of humor. This is nothing like any of the Captain America movies. It's nothing like the Avengers movies, really. It's nothing like Ant-Man or Doctor Strange, despite him popping up in it. It's nothing like Spider-Man. It's distinctly different. Yeah, it's got similarities to Guardians of the Galaxy in that it's set in space and it's a bit offbeat and silly,
even then, like, Guardians of the Galaxy goes for a kind of broader, cruder sense of humour generally. It's James Gunn, and I'm not saying that in a bad way. I like James Gunn. Whereas this is that it's a lot more of that dry New Zealand style of humour in this one. And you know, one thing I'll say is I thought the action was brilliant in this film, which I wasn't expecting to be as good, because Taika Waititi is obviously a comedy director primarily. He's not really done a massive film before. I wasn't expecting there to be like big elaborate space sequences and spaceships flying around and stuff, like as cool as they were here. I just thought it was great. It's so much fun from start to finish, and the cast is brilliant. It feels like Thor finally knows exactly what it needs to be, because it's always been the Marvel series that's a bit confused and not quite sure of itself.
I almost walked out of this film. That's how annoyed I was.
Why?
The first sort of 20 minutes, it was really, not only was I going to walk out, but I was like, I'm not even going to watch films ever again. I'm so sick of this. I'm so sick of Marvel. I'm so sick of watching 4 films a year that are the same fucking thing.
The first 20 minutes are particularly like Guardians of the Galaxy in a way that doesn't reflect the rest of the film, because they play a popular song over an action scene at the start.
Yeah, fucking hell. Yeah, it really wound me up.
But that is the only point that happens.
But to be fair, once the plot kicked in and it got going a little bit, I got more into it and it was not so bad.
I'm not a massive fan of the opening scene either, to be honest. I think it's a bit too overtly comedy, and it feels like they're trying to set the tone immediately so that you know what to expect coming from it. But I don't think it works as well as the comedy that comes later on.
Yeah. Well, anyway, that's what really wound me up. And then I did enjoy the film. It was entertaining, and I think what it did well. I liked the comedy of it. I think it worked. Hemsworth's really good at it. Like, he can do that.
See, this is something, the cast are great. So this is the first time Heimdall, Idris Elba's character, has had a role that is worthwhile and feels like he's useful in the film.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
Loki, brilliant again. It's a character with actual grey area and nuance, and they actually do a good job of using him here. He's a great anti-hero. He's not just to become a good guy. He's not just an outright villain. They actually do a really good job of. I
found a lot of it too simplistic. Some of the characters were just very one-dimensional. A lot of the plotting was just very standard. I knew everything that was going to happen. And so that let me down a little bit. I expect a bit more from Marvel these days.
In its broadest strokes, it adheres to like a hero's journey and everything. Like, it is, a big blockbuster. But I think it's got some surprising little twists and turns, and
it was a little bit too simplistic for me. And
this is a film that ticks so many personal boxes for me as well, I should add personally. Like, there's a giant fucking wolf. The villain just has a giant wolf that's like massive. That's so good.
That's one of your things, isn't it?
a big fluffy wolf. That's so good. I love giant animals in general. Jeff Goldblum is on form. He is peak Goldblumming.
But again, that's exactly what I'm talking about, because that is so basic. Oh, put Goldblum in it because he's like wacky, and let him improvise a bit. And it's like, it's such simple stuff.
Yeah, but it's Goldblum being Goldblum and doing a good job.
It's like putting Christopher Walken into that role. It's like,
which would be so good.
But it's been done so many times now. It's like, we need, or at least bring something more to it if you're going to do it.
Look, like, I'm very worried that Goldblum's going to be like having some allegations made against him very soon. So I'm trying to enjoy him as much as I can before it comes out, right?
Oh no! Why would you even say that? No, he's a lovely man.
Well, I want to keep believing that he is for as long as I can, all right? And I enjoyed him in this film. I thought he was great. I've not seen him in something that I've enjoyed his performance this much for a while. Because, like I say, this was Goldblum just Goldblumming everywhere. It was great. And I want to mention Tessa Thompson, the relative newcomer who played Valkyrie. She's brilliant. That character's brilliant. Thor finally
That's one
has
of the
a
really
good
simple characters.
Female character.
That was one of the really simplistic, one-dimensional characters I was talking about.
And also, we've not mentioned Cate Blanchett, who I thought was fantastic as Hela, the villain, completely chewing the scenery. But
this is full-on Power Rangers, Rita Repulsa.
But that's it, Calvin. Imagine how much you'd love it if Cate Blanchett played Rita Repulsa and
it'd be
really
brilliant.
went for it.
I'd love it.
And with the costume design on her as well, the art design is great. And Marvel are often criticised for having weak villains in their films. I thought she was fantastic. I thought she was about as good a comic book villain as you could hope for. And I really liked the way that her character kind of subverted the mythology as well. The fact that Odin was shown to have been a kind of war-hungry cunt in his youth, and
this is it. I liked that, but I wanted to get further into that. I wanted to see a development of this relationship between her and the two brothers, and to sort of, rather than it just becoming a big fight, and that never got deep enough for me, because I was on her side. I think for the most part, I can understand where she's coming from, but they still just turned her into this very simple villain that had to be got rid of. I would have preferred something more than that, especially given the history they've got with Thor and Loki, that they do play that grey area. But then in this one, Loki again is it's a little bit too much oh, you cheeky young scamp, you tried to murder me again, didn't you? It's can we have some proper consequences?
I like that in this, because it feels, I don't know, by the end of it, you get the sense that Thor's accepted that this is his brother, and he loves him as a brother, but he's aware that he's a bit of a twat. He can't be trusted. And I thought they did a really good job, to be honest, of having that dynamic feel genuine. What I said earlier about Marvel coming into its own now it really sort of seems to know what it's doing, why stuff works that it's doing. I think this is a perfect example of this. I would put this up as a contender for Marvel's best film. Maybe not as good as The Avengers. I think I'll stick with The Avengers, but it's up there. I loved it.
Should we do ratings?
I give it 6. Which, bear in mind, 20 minutes in, I was ready to give up on Hollywood altogether.
Yeah, that's...
It's not bad, really, when you think about it.
I give it a 9 out of 10, this one.
Praise. So what's that, a 7.5?
7.5, diminishing returns.
Wait, I've got a quiz question for you first. I think you'll be quite good at this one, so it might not be that entertaining.
What, me?
No, both of you. I think this is So, Thor Ragnarok is the 17th film of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So what I want you guys to do is name all the films in chronological order.
I think I could probably name them all in chronological order very quickly and easily. So
I think I could.
See, this is too easy, isn't it? I thought you'd be good at this. So what I'm going to do is we're going to take it in turns. Okay. You get it right, you get a point, but if you get it wrong, you lose a point. So there's a little bit of... we're going to start with you, Calvin. Iron Man was the first one, 2008. Yeah.
The Incredible Hulk.
Yes, also 2008.
Iron Man 2.
Iron Man 2 in 2010.
Thor
is number 4, 2011.
Captain America,
the first Avenger, just a couple of months later. Yes, correct.
Then it's The Avengers.
Well done. So that's your phase 1.
Now here's where it gets a little bit trickier, I suppose. I'm going to say Iron Man 3.
Iron Man 3 is correct, 2013.
Then Thor the Dark World.
That is also correct.
Then is... it's either Guardians of the Galaxy or... It's either Guardians of the Galaxy or it's Captain America, the second one. What's it called? Winter Soldier. I'm going to go with Winter Soldier, Captain America.
That is correct.
Oof.
April 2014 that came out.
And then it's obviously Guardians of the Galaxy after that.
Then it is, which came out in August 2014.
After that, is it Age of Ultron?
It is, yes.
Right.
Correct.
So now it's starting to get a bit tricky now. Ant-Man, I think, came after that.
Ant-Man is correct. July 2015.
Now it gets tricky. The first one of Phase 3. Is it Captain America Civil War?
It is, yes. Correct.
All right. I think the next one is Doctor Strange, but I'm not certain.
It is Doctor Strange.
All right,
November
cool.
2016.
I'm home safe now. I know the rest. That's cool.
So then the next one would be Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2?
Correct.
Right.
Spider-Man Homecoming.
And then Spider-Man Homecoming, and then Thor
Ragnarok.
Well done, guys. Teamwork. Yeah, well done, guys. I wasn't sure about that one because I knew I wouldn't be able to do it, but I thought you might be better at it.
So, Calvin, what was your segue you were about to do? Because it was good.
Oh, yes, from one superhero franchise to another. I wouldn't say that was a good segue. I mean, it's
passable.
It's a segue.
It's competent.
Yeah. We talked about Wonder Woman, a good DC film in anticipation of Justice League.
One might say the good DC film.
Yes, actually, that's true. Yeah. Yeah.
Although, have we all seen Justice League?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, this is going to be interesting then. So obviously Justice League got, like, really bad reviews and shit. What do you guys make of it?
It wasn't as bad as Suicide Squad or Batman v Superman, but I didn't like it. I still thought it was boring. It was more boring. It was more boring and uninteresting than bad. But you can obviously tell that it's had two different directors come in at different parts and snip bits off and chuck things in.
There were some bizarre moments in terms of editing where it was like, wait, weren't we just down there? What are we doing now? And it's like, I guess they just had to like cut from one scene to another really abruptly because
and it is like super obvious like which bits.
This is the thing because I'd heard it was difficult to tell them apart, and it's like, right, that's obvious. This is obviously a Joss Whedon scene. This is obviously a Zack Snyder scene. Watching it, it's so obvious. Like, I haven't even checked this online, so maybe I'm wrong, but, like, for example, there's a scene just before they go into battle, and they're kind of having a heart-to-heart, and then Aquaman starts saying, like, all this stuff about how he loves these guys, and then he realizes that Wonder Woman's truth lasso is on him, and it's like, this is the most Joss Whedon written thing I've ever seen. It's so clearly been inserted to add some, like, make the relationship between these characters clear,
personality,
up the emotional stakes, and I mean, it's a good scene as well. I'll give it credit. The bit where they jumpstart the goo to resurrect Superman, and it goes all slow motion. Zack Snyder all over. It's like a music video.
Yeah, but no, and that's not even taking into account all the probably dozens of executives that are giving notes and changing things as well.
And you can literally tell when it's Joss Whedon when Superman's on screen, because does his upper lip look like a rat boy or like a human pig?
Yeah, they CG'd off his mustache, I believe, because he grew a mustache for filming Mission Impossible 6. 7,
because there was
12.
such extensive reshoots when Joss Whedon came on board to take over the film and fix it as best he could. They had to do loads of reshoots, but obviously he was busy in a contract for another film, and I think he'd finished filming it, but obviously they needed to keep the option to have reshoots open if they needed to do any reshoots, so he wasn't allowed to shave.
But it's a nice indicator of like what scenes were Joss Whedon and which ones weren't, because that's the thing about, like, we're never gonna get a true warts and all documentary analysis of what was Joss and what was Zack, and there must be a Zack Snyder. No, there will be a Zack Snyder cut somewhere on some hard drive in Warner Brothers, and I would be fascinated to see what, and just put the two side by side and compare them. We're never gonna see it, much like when they released Suicide Squad on home media, and they said, it's a big director's cut. It was barely different. They added a few scenes here and there and changed a couple, but
it'll be a first draft rough cut if there is anything. It won't be reflective of what Zack Snyder's finished film would have been. It might be an interesting indicator of where he was going with it, but it won't be a Zack Snyder cut of the film.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't terrible. It was solid for what it is, but it didn't do anything special or new or interesting. I thought that Aquaman and The Flash were both kind of forgotten about. They weren't relevant enough to the plot.
Yeah.
I like both of the characters, and I think if they do the individual films, they'll have enough personality there.
Tell you who I really liked was that cyborg guy.
I didn't think there was much there.
He was a surprisingly interesting character. To say I didn't know anything about him going in. I found him quite interesting and compelling, and I think it's not like he's that amazing in this film, but I am genuinely interested to see his solo film they're working on, because I think that character, with what they've got to work with there,
they could get some depth
very
there.
Interesting. Yeah,
I suppose so.
Depth in this one.
Definitely, there's some tragedy in that one.
Yeah, I'm not particularly bothered about Aquaman based on this film, even The Flash. I don't like The Flash.
I love The Flash.
The Flash was good as part of an ensemble. I I worry that he will not be able to carry a film of his own as well as he would.
Well, that's it. Both of those characters have got quite a lot of personality, so they're quite good in ensemble because they make an immediate impact. Boom, have a line, boom, boom, boom. Whereas Cyborg, I think, was lost in this a little bit because we didn't have time. But in a proper film where they actually go into a bit of depth and examine him, I agree with you. I think there might be more character there.
When Alan came into our show proclaiming that he loved Suicide Squad, bizarrely, one of the things he said was that he thought it did a really good job of establishing all these new characters and introducing them. Now, this film, I think, is actually a good example of establishing a load of new characters and getting us used to them. I think it actually does a good job of that. I think Cyborg was established very effectively and relatively quickly. The Flash was established very effectively, relatively quickly. But also the bulk of the film is about establishing this team, and so the film doesn't need to rush getting them together out of the way. I'll be honest, I actually quite enjoyed Justice League. It's a messy film, but I didn't think it was bad. It was more or less what I expected when I heard Joss Whedon was going to completely reshape the entire thing. And then reviews came out and I was like, oh, he hasn't managed to do it. Then I watched it and it's like, oh yeah, no, it is. It's just kind of like relatively solid, if a bit messy in places, fun. A lot of flaws, obviously, but not enough to kind of tank the whole thing for me. Yeah, long story short, I actually enjoyed Justice League, and I would only put it like maybe one notch below Wonder Woman, to be honest, in terms of how good I think it is. Like,
my
as a film.
God,
I've definitely got a good 2 notches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't. One thing quickly is I didn't like the copious mentioning of Steve Trevor because they go on and on and on about him. Like, they keep mentioning him, and it's like, fucking hell, it's like 100 years later or however long it's been. Like,
it's literally 100 years ago. It's like, I mean, I've been dumped, but you get over it eventually, don't you?
It just felt like they knew. It felt too meta. It felt that they knew they had to keep addressing it because the film had just come out, without acknowledging the fact that the character wouldn't just be offering up, oh, I know someone who would have loved to fly this plane once, and oh, I knew someone who taught me about love once, and all this stuff. It's like...
Well, I think the fact that Wonder Woman is the one film that everyone sort of likes in the DC universe is another reason why they probably kept going to that, make a stronger tie with it, remind people of that. Oh, do you remember you liked that one?
So are they going to remove Zack Snyder from this whole thing, or what?
I believe so. I think this was his swan song, I believe. The first half of production of this film.
From what I understand as well, there've been big structural changes at Warner Brothers. Like, DC Films isn't operating as its own unit anymore. Much like Marvel operate as its separate unit away from let's say Walt Disney Pictures. The DC Films have been brought underneath the Warner Brothers film banner, so they're basically under the same production bracket.
Did you guys sit through to the end credits?
Oh, God, no.
I enjoyed the little bit at the end. It was good fun.
I read up on it. It had Jesse Eisenberg back, right?
Yeah, Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor. You're in whatever prison he's in. He's not in Arkham Asylum, is he? He's in some other one. The guard's come on, Luthor, come out, turn around, and he doesn't do anything. And then they turn him round, and it's this bald man cackling maniacally in a straitjacket, which I took to mean, the Joker's come to break him out. Now, I don't know if that's actually what was intended or not.
Oh.
But I'm just going to continue to assume it is, because I like it more that way. And then there was you see him on a boat, and some character that people care about that I don't care about. Some mercenary guy, whatever he's called. Some character comes out, and Lex Luthor basically says, I'm making my own Justice League full of bad guys. Setting up a what they call League of Doom, or whatever they're called, which I think's a good direction to take the sequel, because Zack Snyder's original vision for this was the main villain was just a henchman of a guy called Darkseid, who's basically the Thanos of the DC universe, and it was just going to be this big, boring load of nonsense. But the idea of, it's an Avengers made up of villains versus an Avengers of heroes is something that hasn't actually been explored in these films yet, and I'm hopeful for the future of the franchise. Anyway, more on that in our next DC-themed episode, which will not be long, I'm sure.
Yes. Well, what's the next one? Is it Cyborg, Aquaman?
Aquaman, I think.
Okay.
But yeah, ratings, guys?
It's between 4 and 5. I'm gonna go 4. Yeah, 4.
I got 6.
I give it a 7. Senior Sevens! Arriba! First of the year.
Oh, I'm just reading up on. I just looked to see when Aquaman is released. It looks like it's been pushed back.
Oh, really?
It was supposed to be released in July. Now it's going to be December next year.
Wow.
And that's
Bloody
the next
hell.
film in the DC franchise. So it's a whole year to go.
Huh. Wow. They filmed it already, though, right?
Yeah. Our friend James Wan.
Interesting. Wow. Okay, so that's 5.7 diminishing returns score for Justice League.
Mm.
I've got one last quiz question for you regarding the
Hooray.
DC universe.
So is this a decider of the quiz? Who wins the quiz?
Calvin's a few points behind, so I'll come up with a way of doing this where there are at least some decent points available, if you can get them.
Okay.
But it's not a big question. So basically, I've got the box office performances of the DC Universe films here.
Oh, brilliant.
So
That's more of a Calvin thing. Shit.
So what
I
we'll do
love
is
this stuff.
what we'll do is you've got to tell me what the box office is. Whoever gets closest gets the point. But if you get it within,
Oh, what? I'm going to pick an... Oh, God. Oh, okay.
I tell you, if you get it within 30 million, I'll give you 3 points.
How much money it made
Box office. Yeah.
opening.
Is this like global, worldwide?
Worldwide
Okay.
box office. Man of Steel is the first one.
This is the one that I'm least likely to
God.
get right. I'm going to go for 650 million.
650, Calvin. Okay.
I'll go 700 million.
The correct answer is 668 million.
Yes!
Which means 3 points to Calvin.
Brilliant. That was a real stab in the dark, that one as well. Like, I didn't really...
That is very good effort, very good. Let's give you some sort of ballpark number now, though, to work on. 668 million. So the next one is Batman v Superman. Better let Sol go first. We'll alternate.
830. Yeah.
830?
Yeah.
Okay. And Calvin?
835.
835, okay.
880.
880. The correct answer is 873.
Oh!
Yes!
That's another 3 points to Calvin. You're back in the game.
Oh my god. This is my round.
This is outrageous.
This is because
Okay.
I love looking up these numbers. Like, this is like one of my favourite things to do.
Okay, you're first on the next one then. Suicide Squad.
Oh, now this one's going to be a bit trickier. 800 million I'm going to go for.
800.
This is the one I'm least sure of.
I'm going to go 750.
750. The correct answer is 746.
Oh.
So that's
well
3
done, Saul.
points to Saul. Very good.
Damn it.
Okay, Saul, you're first on this one. Wonder Woman.
926.
9, okay. 9 to 6. Calvin.
I'm going to go 830.
The correct answer is 822.
Yes!
That's another 3 points for Calvin.
Yes! I knew that because I knew that Batman v Superman was the highest grossing one of the lot so far.
Okay, guys, you need to think tactically about this one.
Okay, oh god.
This is for Justice League, and this is as stats as of now, basically. Just to let you know, you are 1 point behind, Calvin. So,
Okay.
It's all to play for.
I'm gonna go for, right now, I think it's gonna be 630 million.
630. Sol?
Man, I mean, am I not allowed to go within 30 of Calvin?
What were you gonna? What was your?
Well, I was probably going to guess about 630. 620?
So you're going
Still quite close.
620.
Yeah, I
So
think
you're
it might
going
be
lower,
more than
basically.
I think it might be slightly more. No, I'll stick 620.
620. So you're going lower than 630. The correct answer is 637.
I was going to say 636 originally, and then I backed away because of bloody...
But you were both within the thing there. But Calvin was. But so by that theory, you get 3 points each. But then Calvin was closer, so he should get an extra point, which means you've ended up dead level.
Oh, Isn't that
on
lovely?
that
is very
49
nice.
points each. And I think
I'm
that's the
shaking
best
your
way
hand,
to
Sol.
go off.
I think that's lovely. I think that's
It was
really
a good,
nice.
good clean fight.
Yeah.
Outrageous.
Well, you had your specialist Transformers question, and I had my specialist box office question. So,
You know how good you are with Transformers.
yeah. So
Yeah, I love 'em.
button your lip.
It's
Moving
good
on.
work though, guys. Well done.
Last 3 films of the year. Starting with The Disaster Artist, which we looked at The Room for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which is, I believe we've all seen this one, I think.
Yes.
From what I've
Yeah.
seen on social media. Okay, yeah, great. Okay, who wants to go first? Alan, what did you think?
Well, my immediate thoughts were that I think I don't see what you think about this, Calvin, but I think I'm suffering slightly because I've read the book, and I felt like I felt like the book goes into so much more depth, and you get so much more character from it. That this felt a bit superficial for me. Like it didn't quite get into that character enough, and I didn't see enough of the grey area of Wiseau, I suppose. And also the structure of the book worked much nicer that you couldn't do with the film because it's this very straight linear structure. It meant like they kind of rushed through the relationship bit to get to the filming of The Room. So I did enjoy it, but it just felt like it had so much more potential to be something else and something great, and so I was slightly frustrated by that.
I somewhat agree with that.
But did you read the book?
No, I think having not read the book, I probably enjoyed it more because there was a lot of like, oh wow, this is what I assume this is what he actually did watching this. Wow, that's really interesting. Which okay, because I didn't know the ins and outs to the same degree as you guys, having not read the book.
Oh, see, no, I really, really enjoyed it still, despite having read the book. There are definitely quite a few bits in it where it was, I could remember like, oh, well, these 2 events happened on separate days, and that wasn't really the catalyst for that argument and that kind of stuff. And, oh, well, actually, they took her to the hospital. They didn't just carry on with the day's work or whatever when she passed out. But, I was fine with that. I was expecting it not to be, a terribly, faithful adaptation.
Yeah, that's
in that
fine.
regard.
You've got to get it down to a manageable length. I think maybe I'd love to see the reaction of someone watching this film who doesn't know The Room, doesn't know what it is, doesn't know who Tommy Wiseau is, and to see if it would work. Because I think
it would.
You could make this story that would work on that level. It's a story about 2 struggling actors that find this kind of awkward relationship, even though one of them's a bit kooky, but then he suddenly decides he's going to make a film himself. I mean, but then he's also got loads of money, and he becomes this terror because he's got an ego trip on him, and then the other guy has to deal with it. Like, that's a great story, and you could get some real character stuff in there. And I feel like because of what The Room is and its cult status, there has to be this bit like, oh, let's get to The Room. Oh, look, it's that scene where he goes, you're tearing me apart. Oh, he did that. Yeah, look, he recreated that scene. And it's like, I'd love to have gone into it a bit more cleanly, I think.
I think it did a really good job of imbuing some implied characterization for everything going on. I think it did a remarkably good job of having some emotional impact towards the ending. There's a shot at the premiere where Tommy Wiseau starts crying because everyone's laughing at his shitty film, and I felt genuinely sad for him. It worked, and
is that not undermined by what happens then afterwards?
And no, I don't think it is necessarily that undermined. It felt like you can tell when you're watching it which bits have been truncated, and my watching it was like, right, well, obviously this didn't happen on opening night, and that people weren't laughing and hooting at it, and this is kind of the film being its lifespan after release being condensed down into one night for the sake of narrative, and I'm okay with that. And I do think a lot of why this film is interesting and why Tommy Wiseau is fascinating is perhaps stuff that wouldn't work were it not based on a true story. If it was just an original character, you'd sort of be like, well, this is bad writing, because what the fuck is this about, and why there's no we need a bit more explanation for what's going on. But I also think the film goes out of its way to establish that it is a real story and it is based on reality, which cuts it a lot of slack in that regard. And for example, at the end, when there's a gratuitous amount of side-by-side sequences showing how they recreated stuff, I was listening to an interview with Seth Rogen, I think it was. Oh no, it was the writers, sorry, of the film, where they were saying that they basically had to include that and go back and add it in because they were showing this film to people who didn't know what The Room was, and it was testing really well with them, but they just thought it was like a fiction. They didn't realise that it was like, they just thought it was a funny comedy rather than a true story, so they just wanted to kind of hammer home that and the talking heads at the start, or the people talking about The Room.
Yeah, and that did all feel a bit gratuitous, but I guess, yeah, like you say, it has its purpose, doesn't it?
And yeah, I mean, overall, I thought it was just really good fun. It was full of like cameos and good like actors that I like, and they all did a good job. And yeah, I like I say, I thought it worked. It made a strong narrative out of something that could have just been a very disposable little thing. And I thought it was a nice little. It wasn't just a piss take, you know. It was like a tribute to The Room. It was a loving homage. It acknowledged the fact that for all its faults, The Room is a film that people are still like getting something out of and enjoying on some level, you know. And we're doing bloody podcasts about like over a decade on.
I did also feel like apart from Tommy and Greg, all the other characters, it felt like they were just window dressing. Like they didn't get anything from them at all, really. And that was a little bit kind of like, I would like to have seen more. Get their perspective on the filming process and stuff.
To say they had quite a respectable supporting cast as well.
Yeah, I agree, but I don't feel like I needed any other characters to be explored. Personally, I wasn't really interested in anyone else.
So there was another film that I saw with my boyfriend, and he hadn't seen The Room or didn't know anything about it, and still kind of enjoyed it and liked it a lot, and just got wrapped up with the story. And it's a real classic tale of an underdog and how you can still sort of achieve your dreams, even if the outcome isn't necessarily. No, the outcome is what you wanted, but the journey to the outcome is perhaps slightly different.
I'd love to see a TV series of this story, like a 16-hour long thing of this story, starting with them meeting at an acting class and going through to the process, which is kind of like the book does it, but in a linear structure. There's so much there. There's such a big story there to be told. I think it's identifiable with so many people because Tommy represents passion and emotion and very raw, uncontrolled, and then Greg is kind of gets caught up in that, but is also anchored by reality a little bit more. And so, but he sees something in Tommy that he loves that he hasn't got. This kind of this emotional freedom.
But that's all there in the film. What you're describing.
It just didn't go far enough for me. I'd love to just see it go further. Yeah, but it's a very solid sort of companion piece to The Room, isn't it? It does.
Yeah.
I would rather see a 16-hour documentary assembled from the footage that was taken on set. That's what I want.
God,
an in-depth documentary.
That has to. He's got that. You know, he's got that footage somewhere. He'd make a fortune.
He's just joined Twitter, Tommy Wiseau, by the way.
Wow.
That's
brilliant. Right.
It is. It's fascinating, the stuff he's been posting. I'm looking him up now, actually. I'm going to see if
I'm just looking at his Twitter. He follows 4
Oh God,
accounts.
Yeah, I saw that. I laughed out loud when I looked at his followers. It's so funny.
He follows the official page for The Room, the official page for Best Friends movie, which him and Greg Sestero starred in. He follows Greg Sestero, and then he follows PewDiePie.
Should we give a rating?
Yeah, ratings.
I'll give it an 8.
It's an 8 from me.
6.
What's that? That's like 7.4.
7 and a third.
7.4, rounding up.
The next film is Star Wars: The Last Jedi. Now, this is another one that we're probably going to cover quite briefly here because we're going to come to a full episode on it later down the line, probably in front of Solo, perhaps, which is out in May. But this is a shame because I could probably talk for about a good couple of hours on this alone, but I've only seen it once, and I've got a second viewing scheduled because I definitely need to go back and see it again.
So, if you haven't listened to our Star Wars episodes, we recently did a season of Star Wars episodes. Alan and I are not big Star Wars fans. We don't get it. Calvin is your traditional, normal person who likes Star Wars, thinks it's the best thing ever.
don't think that I quite agree with that, but...
All right, it's no James Bond, but it's up
Yeah,
there.
thank you.
So, I mean, I went to see The Last Jedi, having hated The Force Awakens, I should add. We did the whole episode on why I think The Force Awakens is a bag of shit. And I was sort of dreading it, because I do like Rian Johnson, who wrote and directed the film, and I did kind of like the look of the trailer, so I was being drawn in, but I liked the look of The Force Awakens before I saw it, and I didn't like it. So I went in open-minded, but somewhat dreading it, because it's like the longest Star Wars movie to date. Categorically, without doubt, this is my favourite Star Wars film ever made. I really enjoyed it. It's the first time I've genuinely enjoyed a Star Wars film on a, like, personal, emotional level. Like, I really enjoyed it. Yeah, I thought it was good. And I was amazed to come home after having enjoyed it and seeing it with my partner, who's like a big Star Wars person as well, who also loved it, to see that it's like controversial and like all the Star Wars fans hate it apparently. So I was very surprised by that. A vocal amount of Star Wars fans seem to hate it.
I think just a vocal amount of people. I think this goes beyond Star Wars fans. I think it is genuinely. I know people who aren't Star Wars fans who've seen it and dislike it. People who aren't Star Wars fans who've seen it and loved it. Like I really don't think it's as clear cut as Star Wars fans dislike it. Or
I've been trying to rack my head around why people don't like it for the last like however long it's been since it came out, and I think I've kind of started to understand it, and I think a lot of it is to do with expectations of what Star Wars is and what it's supposed to be. And obviously I don't carry any of that baggage because I don't give a shit. and this film kind of metaphorically and literally burns what Star Wars is to the ground and starts to rebuild it. And I'm all for that, because the films exist and they're in the past, but if this franchise is going to continue into the future, it needs to start forging new ground and doing new things. And
and I completely agree with that. It can't just be, oh, this Skywalker's had this kid, let's follow that one. It's like they need to branch out of that family at some point.
Because The Force Awakens is just, let's do a shot-for-shot remake of A New Hope, and this could have fallen into the trap of being Empire Strikes Back remade, but it takes joy in subverting your expectation that that's what it's going to be, and it isn't that at all, and I genuinely enjoyed it. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's not to say I thought it was perfect by any stretch of the imagination. It still had lots of flaws in it, but they just didn't bother me. Like, I think there's major flaws in every Star Wars film made since the first one, to be honest. That's the thing. I have massive issue with all sorts of things in Star Wars movies. So the fact that Princess Leia flies through space at one point using the Force wasn't enough to ruin the film for me. Alan?
Well, yeah, it took me quite a while after watching this film to like write a review and stuff, because honestly, I came out of it just thinking, yeah, just more Star Wars. It really had very little impact on me, positively or negatively. I wasn't particularly engaged. It did kind of what I expected it to. I felt like tonally this wasn't quite matching up with the last one. I felt like it wasn't really a kiddie action romp. This was a bit more serious.
I like that about it. And
on the one hand, I like that, but on the other hand, it felt tonally inconsistent.
Yeah, but fuck the last one. It's shit.
No, but you
fuck
can't.
The Force Awakens.
Yeah. To you, it might be, Sol, but
well, the same way The Force Awakens doesn't care about the prequels.
No, it just doesn't acknowledge them. It doesn't take what the prequels did and undo it. It doesn't. I mean, that's part of my problem with this. A lot of the choices that are made in this film, because it's one thing to shock and subvert I'm about to explain if you let me finish. It's one thing to sort of subvert expectations and surprise. It's another thing to just erase what happened in a previous film because presumably the director didn't like it, because the director, Rian Johnson, probably didn't care about what Snoke, where Snoke came from or what Rey's lineage was.
He's awful. The film doesn't erase Snoke. It just killed him.
It does.
J.J. Abrams can come along and do a backstory for him in the next film if he wants to. If anyone actually cares about this clone of the Emperor, who's just the Emperor again, I've seen it.
And the answer to that is not to develop him beyond that and make him something different. It's just to kill him and start again. Which you know what? I can agree with that, because I think it's more interesting for Kylo Ren to be suddenly thrust into being this. Yeah, exactly. So my problem with it is that I'm now not sure what to invest myself in or what not to invest myself in, because if a director is so willing to just come into a universe and be like, I don't like that, let's just get rid of it, let's get rid of that, let's get rid of that, I don't know what I'm supposed to care about, because like they introduced this new character Rose in this film. I don't like her very much, and I don't know if part of that is because I don't know whether it's worth my time liking her, getting invested in her, if they're just going to toss her away in the next film without much of an ado.
I do think that the next film's going to be shit. I am very worried. I'm like not particularly excited for it because J.J. Abrams is coming back, so I think it's going to be a return to repeating the same old shit and trying to do quote unquote damage control on this film. So I sort of get where you're coming from with that, but just taken as its own thing, I really like this film. And I like one of the big complaints I've heard repeatedly is that the sense of humor doesn't gel with the Star Wars world. I think the opening scene is bizarrely out of place within the tone of Star Wars, where Poe does a kind of prank call almost on General Hux. At the same time, I found that relatively entertaining.
Well, it actually served a purpose in the plot. It wasn't just there, let's do this for a laugh like it would in Thor. It actually served a purpose.
That's the only bit of like weird out of place humor though in the whole film that struck me as being odd. So I just kind of let it go as a tonal thing. I don't know what other weird humor is. I mean, there's a bit where Luke drinks milk directly from like a teat of a gross thing, but
I thought that was hilarious.
I love that. But I didn't really take that as a weird out of place joke. I mean, I guess it kind of is. It's almost like a middle finger to people wanting fan service. The fact that it is a callback to like Blue Milk, which is part of the series canon, but it's like done in the grossest, weirdest way. But I just thought it was I love that. I guess the scene where an iron is like ironing a thing, but it's shot like a spaceship was really funny and not quite in keeping with Star Wars. But I don't know, like there's really not that much in terms of like weird out of place humor, if you ask me. Certainly that struck me as...
I know that people didn't like Luke throwing the lightsaber over his shoulder at the start that he received at the end of the previous film.
I think that's perfectly like in line with the sense of humor Star Wars has, though, up until that point, and I like that. I thought that was such a great. I mean, like if I was someone who went and saw The Force Awakens and was like crying at the end because Luke looked at her for like 10 seconds and then he did that, maybe I would feel annoyed. But I like that, and this is the thing again, as what I mentioned earlier. I love older characters, takes on characters, and seeing them develop, and I didn't particularly care for Han Solo in The Force Awakens because he was the exact same character he always was. They didn't change him at all. I love Luke Skywalker in this because it is a genuine evolution of that guy. It's him 30 years on, and he's evolved in some really interesting ways. And they could have so easily done what loads of people seem to want, which is just this guy is like the leader of the resistance who swans in to like take everyone on single-handedly and save the day. And he doesn't want to do that. And then at the end he kind of does, but in a way that kind of is self-aware and subverting it. And it's...
I really liked the Luke story. That was probably my favourite bit, the way he progressed and the kind of journey he went through. I thought it was really nice.
I agree.
But then there was kind of 3 separate strands here, and the one with Finn and Rose going off on a little adventure felt like filler. There was this big sort of saggy midsection where the film 20 minutes, half an hour too long. It kind of, but that was your action romp bit, and that was fine. It served that purpose, but it didn't tie in with the rest of the film. And in fact, everything they do is completely irrelevant because it never serves a purpose. It felt like filler.
It has thematic purpose, though.
If you care about that particular, like, suddenly they start talking about like the realism of war and like, oh, these people fund this, they fund both sides, they fund the Empire and they fund the rebels and all that kind of stuff, and I'm like, this is Star Wars, for goodness sake, don't get bogged down in this nonsense about like, don't make these real world parallels. And Rose and Finn, the only thing that they accomplish is inspire that young stable boy that we see again at the end. Otherwise, they do nothing. They would have been better off just staying on the ship. And I think it does a disservice to the whole idea of there being this, like, siege going on anyway. And I love sieges, stories about sieges, and the whole thing is that the bad guys are, like, following the good guy ships. But then it completely ruins that premise if people can just pop out here and there whenever they want, like they do in the film, and it really annoys me.
Just going back to the casino planet, I like that because, number one, it's the first, like, interesting new Star Wars location we've had since the Gungan underwater kingdom in Phantom Menace. It's not just a rehash of an old world. It felt like a genuinely, like, interesting new place.
I don't know what's interesting about it. It's a casino.
Yeah, but it's a Star Wars casino.
I mean, I liked it. I'm not going to, do it down, but I didn't love it.
But also, the plot strand exists because it's set up as this, like, 1 in a million shot that these guys are going to go out and save everyone because our characters we're following are, like, better than everyone else and blah blah blah, and the fact that they fail is completely in keeping with the thematics of this film. It's like Poe was basically wrong to be, like, investing so heavily in them on this 1 in a million shot. Yeah, I don't know, it didn't bother me. I mean, what I will say is obviously the film is a bit too long to begin with, so I like that they inspired that kid at the end as well, because obviously the idea there is that actions like this, not specifically just this scene, but every time someone in the Resistance does something like this, it's going to go out and inspire characters, not just this one child. All across the galaxy, it's safe to assume there are people who've been inspired to, like, be on their side, and I think that is a setup for the future. It certainly gives the film a kind of bittersweet element to the ending when he goes out and he's prancing around with his lightsaber.
I just don't think that one ending is worth 40 minutes or however long they spend of just failure and pissing about and whatever. Like, I don't think it helps that I really don't like this Rose character. And I really don't like Finn in this film. I liked him quite a lot in the previous one. I think I have the same problem with Poe, is that they're just sort of, and maybe this is a point that will be picked up on in the next film, but they're all just, like, running around thinking they're solving things, and they're actually just making things worse. Poe especially costs dozens of lives through his decisions, and then at the end I think we're supposed to think, oh, isn't it good that he's learned his lesson? It's like, you've really depleted the entire force that you have through your terrible decisions.
I find that interesting. One of the big takeaways I had from this film is that suddenly all the cast of The Force Awakens and the characters that I hated so much in that film because they were either just a carbon copy of a previous character or a ill-defined nothing, I really enjoyed in this film. And Finn was much the same as the last one, but just kind of further developed. I thought he was fine in the last one. I thought he was fine here. Like I say, Poe wasn't just the carbon copy of Han now. He actually was his own thing, so I liked him. And Kylo Ren, I get now. I get what he's supposed to be, and I like it. I think he's a really interesting character. I think Adam Driver's performance is actually, like, making sense in the context of this character now, and I really liked Kylo Ren in this film.
Yeah, and this was the other story strand of Kylo Ren and Rey sort of starting to sync up, and that whole development, which, like I say, we're not really supposed to go into this in too much detail, are we? So let's just come in. But like, that developed further, and although it kind of came to an ending, it also, obviously, there's more to come. And that's what you want from this middle film. And that was one of the things I liked about it. This didn't feel like a filler film, which is what I was worried about. It does have its own story. It completed its own thing, but also set things up to develop. And it created that balance quite well.
I was completely on edge for the last, like, 40 minutes, hour maybe, of the film, because I was aware that it had been long enough that the film could end. And I just kept it, like, every time someone would, like, walk through a door or, like, look into the distance or something, I was just expecting that to, like, come on and just
I was the same
for me, because I was enjoying it. And the fact that it had a satisfying conclusion that, like, saw out the arcs of the characters in question and, like, didn't just call it quits. And
definitely the Luke story that does come to a very definite conclusion, that worked, because that kind of rounds it off, and it gives you a sense of closure for this film, even though there's things that are obviously going to be continued on. Anyway, let's not get into it anymore, because we will come back to it properly. Oh, ratings for that one then?
Well, I don't really know because I need to see it again, and this is why I like that we revisit films, to be honest, and we do these review of the year shows, and I think, like Alan with Suicide Squad, this is a good reason why we do this, because I think sometimes you can come out of a cinema experience and think one way, and then when you revisit a film under a different circumstance, you see it in a different light. With this, I undoubtedly enjoyed the whole 2.5 hours sat watching it. I was never bored. I didn't think it was sagging in the middle or anything like that. I was enjoying the entire thing. But then as soon as it finished, all of the problems sort of bubbled up to the top and I couldn't stop thinking. And I've had so many discussions and debates with people and my flip-flop opinions and all this kind of stuff. It's really tough to pin down exactly how I feel about this film. And I think I've been a bit of a dissenting voice in this discussion, largely, Saul, because you're quite positive about it. And I feel myself often coming up against this. Like, if I talk to someone who's positive about it, I'm going to be pushing against that. And if someone is negative, I'm going to be pushing against that. It's really tough for me to make my mind up about this one.
I felt much the same way because I solidly enjoyed it coming out of the cinema, and I thought, wow, it's the first time I've enjoyed a Star Wars film. I was expecting everyone, because it's got really good reviews, lest we forget.
Yeah, universal acclaim.
Yeah, I was expecting everyone to be like, brilliant, another great Star Wars film. We love Star Wars so much. And I'd just be able to be part of the mainstream opinion for once, which I was like, oh, great. Thanks, Rian Johnson, for letting me be part of the crowd and not like going against the grain. Yeah, I'm only talking like 7 out of 10 material here because the best Star Wars film in the world isn't that great. The more I dwell on it and think about it, I'm being forced to like reconsider what it is because so many people are complaining about it. The more I
thank you, Saul.
The more I like it, and I feel myself being pushed in that opposite direction towards liking it even more, because the more I'm being forced to re-examine it and like the way it completely deconstructs the hero's journey and that sort of thing, and the fact that it is a very meta Star Wars film and this and that, and I give it a 7 out of 10, but I wouldn't be surprised if I bump that up to an 8 come our next episode looking at it when we come back to revisit it.
I'm going to give it 5.
Ooh, lower than the Phantom Menace.
Yep. Yep.
I mean, that's ludicrous, but
I'll have to, I mean, I'm coming back to it, like, to be honest, like, after my next viewing, it might go up to 8, it might stay, it might go down, I don't know, but, yeah, I definitely need more time to digest this one, for sure.
Well, I'm going to go with 6.
Wow.
So that's a 6 out of 10 overall, which is...
Who would have thought that a Star Wars film would get these ratings from the three of us?
Yeah.
It's
Inverted.
opposite stay.
Oh, also we haven't mentioned, like, it's a stunningly, like, beautiful film to look at.
It looks gorgeous, yeah.
More so, I would say, than The Force Awakens. So just
there was definitely a concentration on color and the palette and stuff like that, and making very bold kind of colors statements. And
Rian Johnson's just a much better filmmaker than J.J. Abrams. I think J.J. Abrams is a bit of a hack, to be honest. He's a hired gun, and he'll come in and make a mass-friendly Star Wars Episode 9 for everyone, and I'll hate it.
I do think that one of the sort of interesting things that I read about preparing for this was that, like, because J.J. Abrams set up all this stuff with, like, Rey's parentage and Snoke and Captain Phasma and all this kind of stuff, and he didn't have any answers for it. He just, like, handed it over to Rian Johnson and was like, well, I've not figured it out, but maybe you can. So, and I do think that sort of plays into your, what you just said, Saul.
The thing is, though, like, I'm amazed that, like, killing off Snoke was so controversial for people. Because, like, I mean, I wasn't expecting him to die in this film, but did anyone actually care about Snoke, really? He's in, like, one scene, maybe 2 scenes of the first film. There's no ambiguity about what he is. He's another Emperor. Fine. Do we need to know that in and out? Like, we don't need a whole prequel trilogy explaining who the Emperor is, if you ask me. So, like...
Well, I think I didn't like him as a character all that much, but I wanted to know, like... And I think it could have been serviced in just a couple of lines of dialogue, like, basically, who this guy was. Was he just, like, some Imperial officer that rose through the ranks? Like, where did he come from to be in such a position of power? Because he's such an odd character in the mix here, and I don't need to know that information about Hux, or Poe or anything, but for him it's like, yeah, you're a pretty big deal, and I kind of need to know, like, how you got there.
But we don't need that in this film. I don't know why it's on this film to explain all that. I'm sure they probably will explain.
Well, because
the
it
line
kills
of
him.
dialogue. Well, yeah, but they can explain what he was in the next one, or they can have a flashback showing
that's
how
true.
he and Kylo Ren met. Or
That's very true. That's very true. I guess it's in a way it feels sort of futile to even discuss this in such great detail, because I guess if we were doing the same with The Empire Strikes Back in like the 80s or something, so much of it is just dependent on what the next film does.
yeah, and one thing I'll say about Snoke, again, just what I was saying about liking characters in this film, I liked Snoke in this film. I thought he was boring and shit in The Force Awakens. I thought he was a fun Andy Serkis performance, charismatic, far more compelling in this film, the way he's played. And Hux even, who I hated in the last film.
Oh, I hated him in this one.
I didn't particularly like him. I still think that guy's giving a dreadful performance, but I felt as if Rian Johnson had done a really good job of editing around his shit performance compared to The Force Awakens, where it's just on show.
Not enough C-3PO.
Okay, let's move on.
What about the Porgs?
We can save that for another day.
Okay, so
On to Jumanji.
It's Alan's film of the year. Oh, for fuck! Alan's going to give it a 9, and it's going to be the most
come on.
highest.
It was my
rated
most
film
anticipated film of
for
the
us.
year. Let's not get carried away. So you haven't seen it, right?
Nah.
No.
And basically, it's just come out yesterday, so that's why. But
Yeah.
just so I'll cover this pretty simply. It's got some good points, some bad points. It sets it up with these teenage characters. You set up the characters, then they get pulled into the game and they take on the avatars, right? We know that. The setup of the teenagers is really weak. They're the most kind of stereotype, shitty teen characters. And I guess the point of that is like, we need to establish this quickly, and then we get into these, and then they need to be broad characters so that when they're being played by someone else who doesn't fit the part, they can overdo it and exaggerate it and it'll still work. And I guess that's necessary, but it just means the opening sort of 15 minutes is really shit. Once you get into the proper Jumanji bit, it's a lot better. Yeah, you got Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, you got Kevin Hart, Jack Black, well-established comedy performers. Karen Gillan completely holds her own with them as well. And the four of them, I haven't really seen her in much, so I didn't know what to expect, but she was great. And the four of them as a unit work together really well. Like, nobody's stealing the limelight. Nobody's doing something completely different to everyone else. It works. The story world that is created is quite nice. It's really well realised, nice effects and lots of jungle and all visual nice stuff like that.
Does it feel like a magic jungle, like not a real world jungle?
No.
Yeah.
There's some kind of bit larger than life animals and things, but like not unrealistically.
Not
just
like
sort of
Skull
particularly
Island.
Exactly. Not like that, but just slightly exaggerated for dramatic effect. Really, there's no real tie into the first Jumanji. There's some tangential links that just make it kind of go, oh, remember Jumanji? But there's nothing of relevance to the plot. One of my main problems with it was that it didn't quite take the video game gimmick far enough. There's little elements of it, but it just felt like if you're gonna use that as your gimmick, then use it rather than just using it as a start-off point. But yeah, good in most part. 7 out of 10.
I think that's the highest rating you've given a single film in this. Genuinely, I think you gave
It's
it
not-
a 7 as well.
Yeah, I
but
gave it a 7.
That
It's not been a good year for me, has it?
No.
I don't think I like films anymore.
Only Suicide Squad.
Yeah. I don't suppose you guys have got a top 10 of the year.
I don't know. Apparently, I gave everything 6 or 7.
This is my top 10 of the year, bearing in mind there's still loads of stuff I haven't seen. But as of now, number 10, The Disaster Artist.
Oh.
Liked it. Number 9, Logan.
Hmm.
Good old Wolverine.
Yeah.
Remember him. Number 8, It. Number 7, T2, Trainspotting. The sequel to Trainspotting, which we will have to talk about at some point, I'm sure. Because it's...
Yeah. Certainly wouldn't get anywhere near my top 10.
I don't know why you two always insist on doing an episode on that.
Number 6, The Big Sick. Have either of you seen that?
No.
The Big Sick might be a dark horse at this year's Oscars. It's a romantic comedy, but it's a really, really brilliant, genuinely funny, genuinely emotional romantic comedy. It is Kumail Nanjiani, who, Alan, you will remember, was a voice in the Lego Ninjago movie.
Oh.
The one who had a Pakistani accent. He's on Silicon Valley, but it's him, and basically it's autobiographical. He wrote it with his wife about their true life experience, where basically she was put into an artificially induced coma due to a medical reason, like very shortly into their relationship, and he kind of had to get to know her family and stuff, basically having not met them before, whilst their like daughter was in a coma. Ray Romano plays the dad, Holly Hunter plays the mother, and it's brilliant, and I highly recommend it. Really, really great film. One of my picks of the year. After that, number 5, Blade Runner. Number 4, Spider-Man. Number 3, Planet of the Apes. Number 2, Alien Covenant. Number 1, Thor Ragnarok. There we go.
Oh.
Just wanted to mention those films that aren't like franchisey things in there. Well, the big sick, basically.
What's the worst film of the year, Saul?
A film called Fall of Grace, which is a micro-budget thing about a guy's daughter being possessed by a demon that I reviewed earlier this year. It's just like not only a crappy little film with no money behind it, but like not even competently made. The sound mix is like all over the place, and you can't hear what they're saying half the time, and it's just appallingly badly made. Normally I criticize a film for its acting and its writing and stuff, but like it's very rare that I even encounter a film where like you can't hear or see what's supposed to be going on, and that, it's shocking. If we're going a bit more mainstream than that, because that's a very obscure, all my worst are like fairly obscure, mostly straight to video festival circuit things that aren't very good. The worst mainstream film this year I've seen is Rings.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, at the moment I've got Logan followed by Wonder Woman. I'm trying to find anything else that's remotely good. Calvin, you got any favourites for the year?
Oh, I haven't been keeping.
Yeah, but anything you remember that jumps out as that was a good one?
Well, Alien Covenant's probably up there.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, because you weren't. That was like The Last Jedi for you, and you weren't really sure what to make of it when we talked about it last time.
Me?
Yeah, you said you weren't quite sure what to think of it. You weren't quite certain if you liked it or didn't like it.
Oh, I thought I always liked it.
You rated it highly, but you were a bit unsure. You were very similar to how you were with The Last Jedi. You said you needed more time to like digest it.
Oh, well, digested and good.
Yeah, I love that film too. I've been loving all sorts of stuff everyone hates this year, actually. I've been like normally I hate everything else, but this year I loved Alien Covenant, which everyone hated. I really liked The Last Jedi, which everyone hates. Justice League, I thought was alright. So, yeah. And Mother. Right, well, let me just have a quick look at our ratings for the episodes.
What is our combined film of the year?
Right, there's some ties here, so let's work together to decipher which one's best so they're actually in an order. Because joint for 10th place, so 3 of these films won't make it in. We need to pick one of these to be 10th place on our list. So there's Split, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, Blade Runner 2049, and Cult of Chucky.
Well, Cult of Chucky.
Alan, as the only person who's seen all of those, which is your favourite? I guess it's down to you.
Cult.
Ooh, well, definitely not Blade Runner.
Probably the best of the selection there, Blade Runner, being swatted to one side.
Yeah, because it wasn't that good. Guardians of the Galaxy just did the same as the first one.
Tell you what, as someone who's seen Split, Blade Runner, and Guardians, I'm going to take Guardians off the table for you. That's my input.
Okay. So if it's between Split and Cult of Chucky, there was definitely elements of Split that I didn't like. It felt like it had more originality and kind of ambition than Cult of Chucky. Yeah, I think I'm going to have to go Split.
Between, 8 and 9 here, there's a tie. So we've got Spider-Man Homecoming and we've got Kong Skull Island. I think the fact that Calvin liked Spider-Man and was involved in that means that it's better. Like, its score holds more weight because Calvin hadn't seen Kong.
If more of us have had an opinion, then it's got to be a more valid...
Okay.
That's
score.
a good way of judging it, yeah.
Yeah, okay, so that means that King Kong is 9, Spider-Man's 8. And then we've got a tie between Wonder Woman and The Disaster Artist. Now, personally, I would say The Disaster Artist is the clear winner of the two, but...
I would agree with that.
Very, very different films. Very different films that are difficult to compare directly, so I'm kind of comfortable with either. But, I mean, in terms of how I enjoyed them, Wonder Woman was my preference.
The next one's quite easy. So it's It and Thor are tied for 4th and 3rd place. Given that Alan liked It, but seemed a lot more down on Thor, and I liked It, even though I liked Thor more, I guess we should meet in the middle. It's probably It is better.
Thor almost made me give up on watching films. So.
But you enjoyed it as well, lest we forget. So
I wouldn't go that far.
You literally said you enjoyed it in this recording.
Yeah, but you saying it out of context like that makes me sound like I enjoyed it.
Right, number 3, we've got War for the Planet of the Apes, and now this is one we can all weigh in on. So it's a tie for first place between Logan and Alien Covenant.
Ooh.
Now, I'm going to vote for Alien Covenant, but I feel like I might get outvoted with this one.
Well, I already identified Alien Covenant as quite possibly my favourite film of the year, so I would vote for that one too.
Oh, well,
cool.
I've identified Logan as my top film of the year already, so I guess that I've got to go with that. Yeah, fair enough.
Okay, so our top 10 of the year. Number 10, Split. Number 9, Kong Skull Island. Number 8, Spider-Man Homecoming. Number 7, The Disaster Artist. Number 6, Wonder Woman. Number 5, Thor Ragnarok. Number 4, It. Number 3, War for the Planet of the Apes. Number 2, Logan. And number 1, Alien Covenant. And that is, of course, limited to the films that we've done episodes covering, so...
Yes. Who'd have thought Alien Covenant would come out on top?
It's an odd choice, that one. Bottom of the pile is a toss-up between Resident Evil and Transformers.
But is that based only on my...
No, Calvin rated Resident Evil as well, so I guess that means it's because he liked it, that should push it above Transformers.
No, because that's 2... Who saw Transformers? Just me?
Just you.
So that's 2 compared to 1, which means the 2
right.
is more valid. So if it's a low score, it should be lower.
Yeah, you're right. Calvin, the fact that you've rated this one out of 10 at all means that it's now the worst film of the year, officially. Resident Evil, the final chapter.
You know, I didn't even like it. I just don't think it's a 1 out of 10. You could see what was going on. I need to write that review that I've been meaning to write for the website.
Oh, God, yeah. There we go.
There you go, another year of diminishing returns, with many, many more to come, hopefully. Who knows? Since recording this episode, I've been to see Jumanji Welcome to the Jungle myself. Very quickly, I basically agree with Alan, almost entirely. Solid, good fun, not as good as the first film. Fairly different, really, but, decent. 7 out of 10. Do head over to our website, dimreturns.com, where you can see a comprehensive list of all the films we've discussed in today's episode and our ratings and all of that stuff. There will also be links to the previous episodes where we discussed the films before they came out. As ever, we would love it if you could take the time to rate and review us on iTunes, like us on Facebook, where we are at facebook.com/Diminishing Returns Podcast. Follow us on Twitter at Dim Returns Pod, or follow us on SoundCloud or whatever listening app, site, interface you use. Until next time, Happy New Year! Ta-ra!